Chapter 683. The Baijadama itself is actually a simple black sphere. It's a powerful and unique attack method of the Baijadama using a certain proportion of yin-yang chakra. When Naruto and Sasuke opened their hands and faced the Baijadama, the power of both of them was also added to the Baijadama. The golden chakra flame with a bit of green light first covered the Baijadama, then Naruto mixed the Nine Tails chakra and Senjutsu chakra to a certain extent, and then released it towards the Baijadama. The Baijadama, which was originally just a static black sphere, began to rotate at a high speed after Naruto injected chakra. With the continuous rotation, the shape of the Baijadama also began to slowly change. The golden chakra flame and Senjutsu chakra on the Baijadama slowly turned into a shape similar to the Rasen Shuriken Jutsu that Naruto once used. At this moment, only a thin layer of golden chakra flame was left on the main body of the Baijadama, and more chakra flame directly turned into the blades around the shuriken. Just by looking at it, one can already feel the huge power contained in it. After the infusion of Naruto's chakra, Sasuke also used his Eternal Manjikyu Sharingan's Dojutsu Amaterasu and Katan, Kagutsuchi at the same time. The black flame directly burned on the Baijadama and turned into the sharpest blade of the entire Baijadama shuriken. Seeing that Nine Tails actually directly cast such a powerful ninjutsu under the joint blessing of Naruto and Sasuke, Hachibi also directly released the Baijadama that he had been brewing for a long time. Hachibi directly swallowed the black chakra ball into his abdomen, and after his body slightly bulged, a huge chakra ray directly rushed out of Hachibi's mouth. After all, the Hachibi's chakra is second only to the Kyuubi among the nine-tailed beasts, and the Baijadama displayed by him is naturally very powerful and has a very wide coverage range. Just one attack from him can cover almost half of the entire battlefield. Uchiha Madara himself has half of the ability of Chakra's seal of the Hungry Ghost Path. Even in the face of Hachibi's powerful Baijadama, Uchiha Madara directly rushed towards the huge energy beam formed by Baijadama. The seal of the seal ability was immediately cast. Although the attack power is extremely strong and the coverage is large, in the face of all the abilities of chakra, even Baijadama can't cause too much damage. However, the Baijadama cast by Hachibi greatly hindered Uchiha Madara's vision. The shadow that was summoned by Uchiha Madara just now also returned to Uchiha Madara's body because of the time limit, and it will take some time to cast it again. Now, Naruto and Sasuke looked at each other, and the chakra in their hands surged more powerful, directly pushing out the Baijadama that was brewed in front of Nine Tails' mouth. After being blessed by Senjutsu chakra and Amaterasu, it was directly pushed out. Scorch release, Baijadama. Light will blast, Dark Arrow Zero style. The awkward name directly came out of Naruto's mouth. It was a unique ninjutsu in itself, but for some reason, Naruto directly said such an awkward name. Sasuke naturally didn't care about such details. Since Naruto was willing to name such a ninjutsu that he used together with himself, Sasuke naturally didn't have too many thoughts to refute. At this moment, Uchiha Sasuke's mind was more focused on the Baijadama, Futon, Rasen Shuriken, Senjutsu Chakra, Katan, Earth's Life, and Amaterasu's Flame. When he was young, Sasuke was very good at using shuriken, kunai, and other hidden weapons. At this moment, the task of releasing the Scorch release, Baijadama, Light will blast, Dark Arrow Zero style naturally fell on Sasuke. Sasuke relied on the Amaterasu flame attached to the Light will blast Pitch Black Zero arrow, to control it with his Dojutsu, Katan, Kagutsuchi. The Light will blast Pitch Black Zero arrow, that was originally rampaging became strange. There were even several afterimages in the air that were hard to distinguish between real and fake. Hachibi's Baijadama was finally blocked by Uchiha Madara, but the Light will blast, Dark Arrow Zero style, which was jointly cast by Naruto and Sasuke, was very close to Uchiha Madara's body. At this moment, even if Uchiha Madara wanted to dodge, there was no possibility of Uchiha Madara's profession. However, there was a certain difference between the Senjutsu chakra attached to the light will blast and the Senjutsu chakra that Uchiha Madara absorbed from Senju Takuma's body. If it wasn't for the fact that his body had Senju Takuma's cells, Uchiha Madara wouldn't dare to directly use the seal jutsu seal to absorb it directly. As for using the Jubi's body, Geto Mazo to block it? Forget it. In Uchiha Madara's heart, the Geto Mazo was far more important than his own body. After all, the Geto Mazo was an important tool that allowed him to possess the power of the sage. Senjutsu chakra would cause great damage to it, so Uchiha Madara didn't want to let the Geto Mazo take it head-on. With a flash of determination in his eyes, Uchiha Madara concentrated all the seal jutsu seal ability on his left arm and directly blocked in front of his body. With his Rinnegan, Uchiha Madara could still determine the landing point of the light will blast. He directly blocked the ninjutsu that was attacking him with his left arm, trying to resist the joint attack of Naruto and Sasuke in this way. Obviously, Uchiha Madara relied on his experience and the power of Rinnegan to accurately determine the landing point of the attack. After blocking several shadows, the light will blast directly fell on Uchiha Madara's body. Chakra, Senjutsu chakra, and Amaterasu flames erupted at the same time, and Uchiha Madara's body was directly covered in dazzling light. After a moment, a figure was directly blown out of the dazzling light. Uchiha Madara was directly blown away by the joint attack of Naruto and Sasuke. Chapter 684. When the strong light faded, the place where Uchiha Madara was standing was scorched black. If one looked carefully, it was not difficult to find that the scorched place was even slightly sunken by a few inches, and some places were even burning with black Amaterasu flames. Uchiha Madara, who was knocked away, stood up at this moment. Uchiha Madara's left arm, which was used to resist the attack, was directly cut off at the root, and the broken part was also burning with black Amaterasu flames. Uchiha Madara opened his right hand, and the yin-yang release was directly displayed by Uchiha Madara in a strange way. Just a gentle touch on the wound, and the black Amaterasu flames on Uchiha Madara's wound directly disappeared without a trace. After Black Zetsu gave the Rinnegan to Uchiha Madara, he directly merged into the soil and disappeared without a trace. At this moment, after Uchiha Madara was seriously injured, Black Zetsu's figure once again appeared beside Madara. Black Zetsu's body covered the right half of Uchiha Madara's body, and his hand turned into a hand knife, directly cutting off the left arm of Uchiha Madara directly. Black Zetsu handed the arm directly to Uchiha Madara, and said to Uchiha Madara, "Madara-sama, please use this arm to make up for it." Uchiha Madara's body was greatly injured in the past, and more than half of his body and organs were filled with white Zetsu clones. Uchiha Madara's body had a large number of Senju Takuma cells, and it was not difficult to use a part of Senju Takuma clones to fill his body. Black Zetsu subtly injected a part of his body into his arm and raised it a little higher, directly in front of Madara's face. Uchiha Madara was very clear that the process of collecting the Hachibi and Nine Tails will be more difficult. If his body is broken, then there will be a great drop in combat power. It is not impossible to use white Zetsu clones to fill his body. Uchiha Madara directly received the arm directly on his wound. White Zetsu clones and Senju Takuma cells have the same root. At the moment of contact, pink granulation directly surged from the wound, and almost in an instant, the left arm of Uchiha Madara was directly connected to Uchiha Madara's body. Except for a slight difference in the skin color, there was not even a trace of a wound. "Uchiha-sama. I will take my leave for the time being." After Black Zetsu blessed Uchiha Madara, he directly disappeared from everyone's sight. Seeing that Uchiha Madara directly healed all his wounds in such a way, everyone who stood opposite to Uchiha Madara was full of vigilance at this moment. It seems that if I want to collect the tailed beasts, I have to eliminate all these little bugs first, otherwise, there will be a lot of trouble. Uchiha Madara looked at everyone present, and finally decided to attack everyone except Column Force. 6 Paths, Jubi Seal. As if seeing the Geto Mazo, Uchiha Madara directly used a powerful sealing technique to absorb the Jubi into his body, reducing the possibility of the Gedo Mazo being directly attacked. Unlike Uchiha Obito, Uchiha Madara used such a powerful sealing technique very quickly, as if he picked up an object and put it in his pocket, directly sealing the Gedo Mazo in his body. Although sealing such an incomplete Gedo Mazo in his body can't bring him the power of the sage, but it also provides Uchiha Madara with a lot of chakra. Will Grave, Border Prison. Uchiha Madara's unique Rinnegan Dojutsu was used again, and 4 undetectable Kage appeared on the battlefield again, and several Kage quickly found their targets: Tobirama, Yuan Fei, Uchiha Sasuke, and Nangongja. In fact, Uchiha Madara chose these people after some consideration. Tobirama, as the younger brother of Senju Takuma, although he didn't have the legendary Mokuton, his own achievements in water ninjutsu can be called the water god in the ninja world. Yuan Fei Hiruzen himself has the name Ninjutsu Professor. He has 5 kinds of chakra, and he is proficient in the nature and shape transformation of these 5 kinds of chakra. The power of a combination of ninjutsu is not inferior to any Kekkei Genkai, and it even exceeds it. Uchiha Sasuke himself is a member of the Uchiha clan, and his eyes have evolved to the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan, which is only 1 step away from the Rinnegan. In the fight against his Rinnegan, such a person with such a high-level dojutsu is naturally a great threat. As for Nangongja, to be honest, Nangongja is the only one among these people who he can't see through. After all, cultivators who use internal force have actually reached the end of the road during the period of Uchiha Madara's active period. In Uchiha Madara's impression, these people who practice internal force are just some special ninjas who use different kinds of energy to fight. But after fighting with Nangongja, Nangongja used sword chi and natural chakra, which Uchiha Madara has never seen before. This made Uchiha Madara's heart involuntarily look at Nangongja. As for the remaining Jiraiya and Gaara, to be honest, these 2 people are no different from trash in the eyes of Uchiha Madara. It's just a matter of time for him to deal with them. The Kage summoned by Luan Tomb, Border Prison, is obviously extremely powerful. Although Tobirama and Yuan Fei Hiruzen know that Uchiha Madara has such an undetectable attack, they don't have any particularly effective defense. And Uchiha Madara's own attack makes the general defense useless under such an attack, so Tobirama and Yuan Fei Hiruzen were directly hit by many black iron rods. The black iron rod's special ability to block chakra was also instantly activated. If there is no accident, Tobirama and Yuan Fei Hiruzen will directly withdraw from the battle. Chapter 685. Compared to Uchiha Madara, Nangongja and Uchiha Sasuke, Senju Tobirama and Yuan Fei's Hiruzen were obviously much better. After casting Light Will Blast with Naruto, Uchiha Sasuke left Nine Tails' mouth. However, because Uchiha Sasuke directly poured a lot of his dojutsu into Susanoo before leaving, Nine Tails' body still maintained Susanoo's armor. Sasuke himself has Eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. Although it's still a bit inferior to Rinnegan, it's still at the pinnacle of dojutsu. With the dynamic vision of Sharingan combined with his keen observation after practicing swordsmanship, Uchiha Sasuke still observed the movements of the Kage summoned by Luan Tomb, Border Prison from some clues. Needless to say, Nangongja has reached the pinnacle of swordsmanship. When he was in Blood Cloak Pavilion, Nangongja once used Sword Domain, an ability that was close to a divine skill. Sword Domain itself is a skill to suppress the enemy's ability and improve one's own attack ability. In the beginning, whether it was against Uchiha Madara or Uchiha Obito, in fact, Nangongja used this skill. However, he didn't know why such a skill had little effect on these 2 enemies, so in order to preserve his strength, Nangongja shrank his sword domain to a range of 1 meter around his body. When Uchiha Madara used Luan Tomb, Border Prison, to summon Kage to attack Nangongja and Uchiha Sasuke and Nangongja almost simultaneously unsheathed their long swords to deal with it. Before the battle with Uchiha Madara, Uchiha Sasuke's silver long sword was directly cut off by Uchiha Obito's Tenma spear, so Uchiha Sasuke could only condense his lightning attribute chakra to a certain extent to cast Raiton, Chidori, transformation, Raiton, Chidori sharp spear, to complete the missing part of the silver long sword. Nangongja also directly attached his sword chi and internal strength to his sword of calamity. The blue light and the black sword of calamity complemented each other, full of a sense of deterrence and mystery. Although Uchiha Sasuke and Nangongja's movements were not so consistent, but when they waved their long swords in their hands, they were also full of confidence and elegance. Between the flashes of sword chi, several black iron rods that were thrown towards Nangongja and Uchiha Sasuke were directly shot down by the two of them. Although the black iron rods were shot down, Uchiha Sasuke and Nangongja didn't relax at all. They were still full of vigilance and observed their surroundings. Suddenly, Nangongja directly slashed the sword of calamity in his hand, and a sword chi rushed out directly from the sword of calamity. The half-moon-shaped sword chi didn't attack other targets, but rushed towards a place not far from Sasuke. After slashing this sword chi, Nangongja didn't stop at all. He waved his long sword towards another place, and slashed out another sword chi. Although the two attacks seemed to have a sequence, in fact, Nangongja's attack only happened in a very short time. Nangongja's two sword chi directly hit the two Kages that were attacking Uchiha Sasuke and Nangongja. The Kages were not injured at all when they were not attacking, but at this moment, the two Kages were in a state of attack. Naturally, they were injured by Nangongja's attack. At the moment of being injured, all the Kages cast by Uchiha Madara also returned to Uchiha Madara's body in an instant. The damage suffered by the Kages was also reflected on Uchiha Madara's body. Deep wounds appeared on Uchiha Madara's left leg and right arm, but Uchiha Madara began to recover quickly under the influence of Senju Takuma's cells. These two people are really difficult to deal with as I thought. Looking at the figures of Uchiha Sasuke and Nangongja, Uchiha Madara's eyes became more and more serious. In fact, if Yuan Fei Hiruzen and Senju Tobirama could be completely resurrected, their performance would not be inferior to Uchiha Sasuke and Nangongja, but after all, both of their bodies were simulated by Edo Tensei Jutsu, so their control was naturally inferior. Sasuke, let's go together. Nangongja shouted at Sasuke, and the sword chi and internal strength in his body also surged quickly. After all, Nangongja didn't use chakra, and the seal technique brought by Gakido in Rinnegan was useless against Nangongja. When Sasuke heard Nangongja's voice, he immediately took action. He waved the silver sword in his hand, and the Raiton Chidori sharp spear, which was originally used to make up for the missing blade, scattered directly like scattered petals at this moment, and turned into a small thing that looked like 1,000 books and shot in the direction of Uchiha Madara. Lightning evasion, 1,000 birds and 1,000 books. In the face of Uchiha Madara's seal, Sasuke knew very well that even if he improved his ninjutsu power, there was no way to cause enough damage to Uchiha Madara. So when Uchiha Sasuke used Chidori, he didn't pursue attack power, instead, he pursued attack density. At this moment, the Chidori was quite overwhelming, and they were attacking Uchiha Madara. Uchiha Madara looked at Uchiha Sasuke's Chidori and naturally understood that Uchiha Sasuke wanted to cover his line of sight in this way, and then let Nangongja carry out a real lethal attack on him. Uchiha Madara was hit in the same way before. Naturally, he won't fall in the same place twice. Uchiha Madara opened his hands, and the power of Rinnegan gathered in his palms. After a moment, Uchiha Madara displayed the power of Tendo Shinra Tensei. Uchiha Sasuke's Chidori naturally couldn't stop the powerful repulsion, and they were directly bounced off one by one. All the attacks in front of Uchiha Madara were directly cleared under one blow, but a sense of crisis still rushed out from Uchiha Madara's heart. Chapter 686. Before Sasuke covered Uchiha Madara's line of sight, Nangongja, who seemed to have been staying in the same place, no one knew where he was at the moment, and the place where he was standing was empty. Uchiha Madara sensed a very obvious threat behind him and immediately turned around. Uchiha Madara saw Nangongja standing behind him with the sword in his hand. Nangongja waved the sword in his hand, and the sword energy directly shot out from the long sword in his hand, rushing in the direction of Uchiha Madara. The sword energy itself was translucent, and under the high-speed movement and Nangongja's control, it became difficult to predict its whereabouts. Uchiha Madara opened his hands again, trying to use Shinra Tensei to shoot down the sword energy that was attacking him, and a strong repulsive force broke out from his open hands. But in the face of the strong repulsive force, the sword energy released by Nangongja directly burst out with an extremely sharp breath. The sword energy directly cut through the powerful repulsive force, and the speed of the sword energy was almost unnoticeable as it attacked Uchiha Madara. But after all, the traces of the sword energy became very obvious when it cut through the repulsive force. Uchiha Madara quickly condensed 2 black iron rods in his hands, and directly dispersed the sword energy that was attacking him. Sure enough. I'm still a little bit weaker. Nangongja's strength was reflected in the combination of his taijutsu and sword energy attack, but because he wanted to attack from behind, he could only use sword energy to attack from a long distance, which led to the decline of Nangongja's attack power. After all, sword energy was still an illusory existence, and after being directly attacked by Uchiha Madara, it became fragile. Uchiha Madara also had a little lingering fear at this moment. After all, Uchiha Madara got a lot of wood-release chakra and senjutsu chakra from Senju Takuma. Uchiha Madara didn't think that these people standing opposite him could really threaten him. However, whether it was the combination of ninjutsu used by Uchiha Sasuke and Uzumaki Naruto, or Nangongja's sword energy attack that he couldn't absorb, Uchiha Madara had to adjust his mentality again, and began to face these juniors with a more serious attitude. Uchiha Madara's eyes drifted from Nine Tails and Hachibi, and finally decided to choose a more conservative way: let Jubi resurrect completely first, and then deal with these juniors. Would release, would clone jutsu. Uchiha Madara quickly printed a seal, and a would release ninjutsu was directly cast by Uchiha Madara. After distributing chakra to the 4 clones, Uchiha Madara directly let the 4 clones rush directly to Nangongja's side and entangle Nangongja. Speeding up his movement speed, Uchiha Madara began to rush directly in the direction of Naruto and Killer Bee. But only a small distance forward, a figure directly blocked in front of Uchiha Madara. Taking a closer look, the person standing in front of him was his clansman, Uchiha Sasuke. Uchiha Madara looked at the junior of his clan who had Eternal Manjikyu Sharingan and said coldly, "You shouldn't have blocked my way, you should know in your heart that you can't stop me alone." Hearing Uchiha Madara's contemptuous words, Uchiha Sasuke's face was still cold. At this moment, Sasuke's heart was really without a trace of fear, even if the person he was facing now may be the strongest person in the ninja world today. Sasuke directly held the broken sword in his hand tighter, and then rushed directly towards Uchiha Madara. Uchiha Madara has the ability to seal, so all the attacks with chakra can't be used. Uchiha Sasuke also decided to directly rely on his taijutsu to fight against Uchiha Madara. Although Uchiha Sasuke's kenjutsu is very exquisite, and it can even be said that it has a feeling of opening a new school, Sasuke's enemy Uchiha Madara has a powerful strength that can directly ignore all skills. No matter how you change, I will break it with my own strength. Looking at Uchiha Sasuke's exquisite footwork and mysterious sword moves, Uchiha Madara just casually clenched his hand into a fist and directly rushed towards Uchiha Sasuke. Uchiha Sasuke can't use chakra to deal with Uchiha Madara, but Uchiha Madara can fully use his chakra. Senjutsu chakra was directly released by Uchiha Madara from his body, using a method similar to Senjutsu, Frog Gauntlet. Uchiha Madara's simple punch directly turned into a medium long-range attack. Uchiha Sasuke has not yet approached Uchiha Madara's body, and he was directly attacked by Uchiha Madara. The powerful force directly acted on Uchiha Sasuke's body, and part of Senjutsu chakra also directly invaded Uchiha Sasuke's body, making Uchiha Sasuke directly fall to the ground and unable to move. Uchiha Madara looked at Sasuke, who was directly knocked to the ground by himself, without the slightest ripple in his eyes, as if defeating an enemy like Uchiha Sasuke was nothing to be happy about for Uchiha Madara. Uchiha Madara slowly walked to Uchiha Sasuke's side and took Sasuke's broken sword directly in his hand. Without even aiming, he directly stabbed the sword into Sasuke's abdomen. A lot of blood directly gushed out from Uchiha Sasuke's abdomen, dyeing a large area of land red. Nangongja was now entangled by Uchiha Madara's four-wood clone jutsu, and there was no way to directly rescue Uchiha Sasuke. He could only watch with his eyes wide open as Uchiha Sasuke's blood kept flowing. After stabbing this sword, Uchiha Madara didn't care whether Uchiha Sasuke died immediately or not. Instead, he once again increased his speed and rushed towards the place where Naruto and Killer Bee were. Sasuke was lying on the ground, scarlet blood stained the white robe worn by Uchiha Sasuke. The scarlet and white set off each other, as if remembering the slow passing of life. But just as Sasuke fell to the ground, the soil suddenly cracked, and a huge python with only the thickness of a person's waist rushed out directly from the ground, then quickly swallowed Sasuke in its abdomen, and then escaped directly into the ground. Orochimaru, watching Sasuke being swallowed by a big snake, Nangongja's heart couldn't help but feel a little relieved. After all, Uchiha Sasuke could be said to be the strongest combat power in Bloodcloak Pavilion except for himself, and his relationship with him was also very good. He didn't want Sasuke to lose his life so easily. Chapter 687. Uchiha Madara's Wood Release. Wood Clone Jutsu is different from the Wood Leaf Ninja Village's Shadow Clone Jutsu. The Wood Clone Jutsu created by Wood Clone Jutsu can withstand more damage than the Shadow Clone Jutsu, and it's not a simple consumable. With Uchiha Madara's complete combat experience and body that can withstand certain attacks, the four-wood clone jutsu directly restrained Nangongja in the same place, and there was no way for him to rescue Naruto and Killer Bee. Uchiha Madara naturally noticed that Uchiha Sasuke, who was just defeated by him, was rescued. However, although it was just a casual blow, he still directly instilled a lot of Rinnegan's Gedo power and Senjutsu chakra into Uchiha Sasuke's body. For people who can't suppress Senjutsu chakra is the most powerful poison, and Gedo power will also block the meridians of people without Rinnegan or higher level. Although it's similar to Nagato's method of blocking and destroying Jiraiya's meridians, this pair of Rinnegan belongs to Uchiha Madara. Naturally, it can exert its greatest power in the hands of Uchiha Madara. After absorbing Senju Takuma's Senjutsu chakra and Wood Release chakra, Uchiha Madara's Rinnegan has also improved to a certain extent. This time, the Gedo power injected into Uchiha Sasuke's body is much more powerful than the Gedo power that was originally blocked in Jiraiya's body. Even if Orochimaru can really find a way to solve it, it won't be so easy. Uchiha Madara used his far superior speed to rush in the direction of Naruto and Killer Bee, but halfway through, someone stopped in front of him. "All of you bugs. Can't you just do your job as a bug and wait for death to come? Jumping around in front of me is really noisy." The person standing in front of Uchiha Madara is none other than one of the Wood Leaf Sannin, Toad Sage Jiraiya. Uchiha Madara used almost no special skills, and was too lazy to communicate with Jiraiya. He directly condensed a large number of Senjutsu chakra on his fist in the same way he just defeated Sasuke, and waved it forward. A huge fist print directly appeared in the air. The distorted air also outlined the shape of the fist print. The fist print was huge, 8 or 9 meters in size, and there was a powerful pressure that couldn't be ignored. Although Jiraiya was in sage mode at the moment, in the face of such an attack, his body couldn't facing such an attack. Even Madara's body couldn't facing such an attack. For such a person who wasn't a threat in his expectation, Uchiha Madara didn't even have the intention to kill him. The chakra in Jiraiya's body was still quite strong, so it's better to leave him alive and feed him to Jubi. Senjutsu, Wind Release, Ninefold Super Rasen Shuriken Technique. Uchiha Madara didn't intend to kill Jiraiya, but after all, Jiraiya just fell between Uchiha Madara and Naruto. Seeing Uchiha Madara walking over step by step, Naruto was naturally very worried that Uchiha Madara would kill Jiraiya. Naruto has been watching Jiraiya's fall these days, but Naruto was helpless like Watergate. When Naruto saw that Jiraiya regained his previous glory and came to the battlefield to participate in the battle, Naruto was very happy. However, the changes in the battlefield were far beyond Naruto's own expectations. Powerful enemies appeared one after another, and the battlefield became more and more dangerous. Even Jiraiya, who had the strength of a Kage, could lose his life at any time. With the relationship between Naruto and Jiraiya, Naruto could only not let Jiraiya lose his life, so Naruto directly controlled the Nine Tails to use Senjutsu Chakra and Nine Tails Chakra to condense 9 huge Rasen Shuriken. Naruto mixed Senjutsu Chakra in it to attract Uchiha Madara's attention and let Uchiha Madara understand that he can also threaten him. Although Naruto's attack seemed to be a bit unwise, it was also because Naruto wanted to save Jiraiya's life. It could be regarded as a sincere heart. Looking at his prey, Nine Tails Column Force, Naruto dared to attack him first. This made Uchiha Madara a little excited, but also a little angry. It was just a prey, but now he dared to directly resist him and may even cause harm to him. This feeling was like a hunter who caught a rabbit and held the rabbit in his hand, but the rabbit was restless and bit the hunter fiercely. This behavior really made Uchiha Madara's heart very angry. Looking at the 9 Rasen Shuriken projected towards him, Uchiha Madara directly stepped on the ground and directly jumped high. The power of Outer Tao condensed in his hands, and 2 black iron rods were held in Uchiha Madara's hands. Looking at the 9 Rasen Shuriken flying towards him, Uchiha Madara, who had Rinnegan, naturally quickly judged the flight trajectory of the 9 Rasen Shuriken. His body directly twisted in the air, and with a shake of his wrist, a huge force was directly transmitted from his arm to the black iron rods. The force was not so rough, but very clever. The place where the iron rods touched was the power node of the entire Rasen Shuriken. The power of Outer Tao in the black iron rods was the nemesis of chakra to a certain extent. The 2 black iron rods directly attacked the power node of the Rasen Shuriken, directly making the 2 Rasen Shuriken dissipate in the air. After the 2 huge Rasen Shuriken were destroyed, the next few Rasen Shuriken also quickly approached the place where Uchiha Madara was. There was no doubt about the power of the Rasen Shuriken, but in the face of it, Uchiha Madara didn't seem to be nervous at all. Instead, as if he was playing a game, he directly kicked the Rasen Shuriken away, or directly twisted his body to dodge, or directly used the black iron rods to directly break the Rasen Shuriken. At this moment, Uchiha Madara was quite unstoppable. Chapter 688. Staring at Uchiha Madara, who was getting closer and closer to them, Naruto and Nine Tails were also full of pressure. Not only Nine Tails and Naruto, but Hachibi was also staring at Uchiha Madara with his huge eyes. After all, Uchiha Madara's current purpose was to capture him and Nine Tails directly and put them back into the Gedo Mazo. Just before, when Naruto and Sasuke worked together to rescue the 7 Bijou sealed in the Gedo Mazo, the Bijou were also constantly communicating with each other in a subtle way. From the mouth of the Bijou who was captured once, Nine Tails and Hachibi have also learned that the Gedo Mazo does have the ability to directly erase the Bijou's will and reassemble the Bijou to form the source of the Bijou, the Jubi sacred tree. So at this moment, Nine Tails and Hachibi have decided that even if they do everything, they must not be sealed in the Gedo Mazo. Naruto boy. Although I'm sorry, there is one thing I want you to promise me. The seal between you and me is very strong, and it almost makes our lives intertwined. In the case of the seal, if you die, I will die with you. So if we really can't stop Uchiha Madara, how about you die with me? For the first time, Kurama began to talk to Naruto in a negotiating tone. Bijou is actually an immortal existence to a certain extent. Even if they accidentally die after a certain period of time, they can still be resurrected with the help of the endless chakra in the shinobi world. Therefore, the so-called die together mentioned by Nine Tails may only be Naruto, and this method is actually not suitable for Killer Bee and Hachibi. After all, the seal used by Cloud Village to seal Hachibi is still somewhat inferior to the seal used by Uzumaki clan and would leave Shinobi Village to seal Hachibi in AI Naruto's body. Such a method can only be used by Naruto and Nine Tails. Kurama, since you've already said so much, what else can I say? Originally, as column force, once you are taken out of my body, I will die. If everything is really not up to par, then it's just a matter of time before I die. If my death can really make Uchiha Madara's plan to threaten the entire shinobi world fail, I will not hesitate to die, after all. Naruto said, and his eyes began to look around at the broken things around him. The traces left behind by various ninjutsu, the dead ninjas and the disciples of the Blood Cloak Pavilion, the people who had all their chakra sucked out and turned into dry corpses, and the disciples of the Blood Cloak Pavilion and the shinobi world who were forced to survive in a corner, Naruto's eyes were full of grief. After all, this shinobi world has suffered too much. If my death can end everything, then I will die. Hearing Naruto's words, Nine Tails' mouth also opened. It seems that he is thinking too much. Although Naruto's mentality has changed a lot in this war, Naruto is still Naruto after all. Naruto is the same as his father, a person who is more selfish than public. Well, we don't need to be so pessimistic now. Everything is not the end, we still have hope of winning. After all, in the previous several confrontations, it has been completely clear that chakra can cause damage to Uchiha Madara. Although I don't know where you learned the application of chakra and entered Sage mode, but now is not the time to care about such details. Naruto boy, now let's fight to our heart's content. Nine Tails' words also rushed into Naruto's mind, and for Nine Tails' words, Naruto's heart was also surging with blood. Although he was prepared to die, Naruto also didn't want to directly kill himself without the slightest resistance. When he could face death directly, just a little pressure from Uchiha Madara's body made Naruto have no scruples. Nine Tails' body condensed with golden chakra flames dissipated in an instant. After all, in the face of a powerhouse like Uchiha Madara, not only will his large body not bring any benefits, but it will also put him at a disadvantage. After entering Sage Fox mode, Naruto's golden trench coat and the black lines on his body also changed slightly, but overall, the difference wasn't very big. Nine Tails' chakra and chakra quickly condensed in Naruto's hand, and a milky white light blade appeared in Naruto's hand. The sticky white color looked very dazzling. Naruto held the light blade and rushed directly in the direction of Uchiha Madara. Uchiha Madara was very angry that Naruto dared to resist him. Now seeing Naruto rushing directly towards him, Uchiha Madara was so angry that the corners of his mouth curved into a smile. A frog in the well who doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Looking at Naruto's figure, Uchiha Madara's anger became more and more intense. But at the same time, Uchiha Madara didn't let the anger in his heart get to his head. After all, Uchiha Madara keenly sensed a large number of senjutsu chakra in the light blade in Naruto's hand. Compared with Jiraiya's inferior chakra application, Naruto's senjutsu fox mode was still a great threat. And behind Naruto, who was rushing towards him, there was an eight-tailed ox demon that still maintained its huge body. Without thinking, Madara knew that the eight-tailed ox demon and Naruto would cooperate with each other in the battle later. Such a troublesome situation was naturally different from Uchiha Madara's expectation of a quick battle. Uchiha Madara was also thinking about how to quickly deal with the eight-tailed column force and the nine-tailed column force, the two important missing links in his plan. But now, the most important thing for Madara was to directly defeat this arrogant kid who was rushing towards him and let him know that he was not the weak chicken he had encountered before. Uchiha Madara held the two black iron rods tightly in his hands. Uchiha Madara increased his release of Outer Tao's power, and the black iron rods also constantly changed shape. For a while, they turned into a strange shape similar to a long sword. Chapter 689. The milky white long sword and the black double sword collided directly. Naruto and Uchiha Madara are not very good at swordsmanship or swordsmanship, but because of their strong physical fitness, Uchiha Madara and Naruto can keenly perceive the flaws in each other's moves and directly attack the other with their own weapons. However, Naruto has an advantage over Uchiha Madara. That is, when Naruto was a child, he spent a long time with Nangongjia, who can almost be called the #1 swordsman in the ninja world. When Nangongjia taught Uchiha Sasuke swordsmanship, Naruto also watched a lot. However, due to the defect of his talent, Naruto really has no development prospects on the road of swordsmanship. Compared to the strange swordsmanship, Naruto is more suitable for those straightforward and powerful attacks, but after all, from Naruto Komatsu, he was exposed to these peak swordsmanship. At that time, Naruto may not fully understand these moves, but in the continuous battle with Uchiha Madara, in order to continue to fight Uchiha Madara, Naruto also reopened all the memories about swordsmanship hidden in the depths of his memory. Uchiha Madara is also very keenly aware that Naruto's swordsmanship is getting more and more subtle, and compared to the beginning, he can only passively wait for the flaws in his moves. He can now guide himself to make the flaws in his moves through his own swordsmanship. And after creating a loophole, Naruto didn't immediately chase after him. Instead, he let Hachibi attack him from behind without retracting his huge body. Hachibi itself is a tailed beast with an extremely fast recovery speed. Even if he received some counterattacks from Uchiha Madara when chasing Uchiha Madara, he can quickly recover. At this moment, Naruto and Hachibi are like a team fighting a boss, cooperating seamlessly to attack Uchiha Madara. Gradually, facing the cooperation of Naruto and Hachibi, Uchiha Madara himself became more and more irritated. After all, Uchiha Madara wants a quick battle instead of such an endless fight. Slightly frowning, Madara released the power of his Rinnegan in an instant. The gravity and repulsion of the heavenly way were attached to the two swords in Madara's hands, one on the left and one on the right. One on the left and one on the right, attracted and repelled. Uchiha Madara took the lead to attack Naruto with the long sword in his left hand. When Naruto saw Uchiha Madara's attack, he naturally used the milky white long sword in his hand to block Uchiha Madara's attack. After all, the black swords in the hands of Uchiha Madara are condensed by the power of Outer Tao. Once hit, it will be a big trouble for anyone. But the moment the long sword in his hand touched Uchiha Madara's long sword, Naruto instinctively felt that something was wrong. Sure enough, when the long sword in his hand touched the black long sword, it was as if it touched a strong glue and couldn't move. His weapon can't move freely. Such a situation naturally made Naruto panic. He tried to increase the strength in his hand to regain control of his long sword. Uchiha Madara suddenly moved in the direction of Naruto's strength, and Naruto's body immediately lost its balance at this moment and began to fall back. Seeing that Naruto's body lost its balance, Uchiha Madara immediately chased after him. The long sword in his right hand was full of repulsive force and immediately cut towards Naruto's body. Naruto was in the immortal fox mode at this moment, and the chakra raiment on his body can form chakra palms to attack. Naruto also reacted at this moment, and two chakra palms instantly condensed on his abdomen and back. The chakra palms on his back immediately opened on the ground, so that Naruto could stabilize his body and find a point of support. The chakra palms on his abdomen directly grabbed Uchiha Madara's black long sword. The black long sword with repulsive force is naturally different from an ordinary long sword. When the chakra palms condensed by Naruto grabbed the black long sword, a repulsive force was attached to the long sword in Uchiha Madara's right hand like an imperceptible sharp blade. The chakra palms used by Naruto were directly cut off, almost without the slightest resistance. The chakra palms were directly cut off, and the Nine Tails chakra robe on Naruto's body was also directly cut off without the slightest resistance. The black long sword directly cut into Naruto's abdomen. As mentioned before, when the black long sword came into contact with Naruto's flesh, the power of the outer path and the Sage Jutsu chakra in the black long sword directly invaded Naruto's body. Although they are both called Sage Jutsu chakra, the Sage Jutsu chakra that Naruto cultivated through Mount Myaboku and the Sage Jutsu chakra that Uchiha Madara extracted from Senju Takuma's body were somewhat different. The invasion of the heterogeneous chakra directly caused the Sage Jutsu chakra in Naruto's body to begin to show signs of going berserk. Naruto's body began to show obvious toad-like characteristics, and his body began to become uncontrollable. When the outer path power invaded Naruto's body, it began to directly block Naruto's tendons and veins. It directly made Naruto completely unable to move. Throwing away the two black long swords in his hands, Uchiha Madara began to quickly condense black iron rods in his hands. He quickly condensed chakra iron rods and directly inserted them into the joints of Naruto's body to restrict Naruto's movement. Uchiha Madara directly ignored Naruto and rushed in the direction of Hachibi. Naruto boy! Naruto boy! Nine Tails in Naruto's body shouted loudly, as if hoping that his voice could encourage Naruto to work harder to regain control of his body, and then directly commit suicide as previously discussed, so that Uchiha Madara would not be able to complete his plan. However, at this moment, Naruto's consciousness was completely in chaos, and there was no way to control his body that had already gone out of control. Only Nine Tails was left in Naruto's body, anxious but helpless. Everything seemed to be a foregone conclusion. Chapter 690. At this moment, the Senjutsu chakra in Naruto's body directly went berserk, but Naruto didn't notice it at all, because at this moment, Naruto's consciousness has arrived in a strange space. The white material turned into the earth, and the gray material became the sky. This is a space that seems to have lost its color. In this space, except for Naruto, there are only two figures that seem to exist. One of them had pale white hair and a wrinkled face. Two sharp horns protruded from his forehead. He wore a long white robe with strange patterns formed by Magatama. This person was sitting cross-legged in mid-air, with a black ring-shaped staff on his knees, just like the ring-shaped staff that Uchiha Obito held in his hand when he entered the Six Paths mode. And in front of this person, there is also a person with black hair and a white robe with some blood stains. This person is very familiar to Naruto, it's his friend, Uchiha Sasuke. Azura. It's been a long time, my child. After seeing the person with white hair, Naruto's heart told him that this person is the ancestor of Shinobi world, Hagoromo Otsutsuki, and the so-called Azura in the mouth of Hagoromo Otsutsuki is himself. This kind of feeling is inexplicable, but it makes Naruto's heart full of confidence. However, Naruto still has a little vigilance in his heart. He was just fighting with Uchiha Madara, and now he is in such a strange place. This situation makes Naruto very puzzled. Perhaps out of his heart's hope to find someone he believes in, Naruto slowly walked to Sasuke's side and said to him, "Sasuke, what kind of place is this?" Seeing that Naruto didn't talk to him first, but talked to Sasuke first, Hagoromo Otsutsuki's eyes didn't show any anger. Instead, he became very relieved. After looking at Naruto standing beside him, Sasuke said to Naruto with a somewhat respectful tone, "Naruto, I know you have a lot of doubts in your heart now. When I first came here, I was also very confused. But all of this will be answered by Hagoromo Otsutsuki. You don't have to maintain useless vigilance. In this world, Hagoromo Otsutsuki will never harm the two of us. Will never harm the two of us?" After hearing Sasuke's words, Naruto's heart was full of doubts, but Sasuke's words undoubtedly told him that the person in front of him is indeed the ancestor of Shinobi world, Hagoromo Otsutsuki, Hagoromo Otsutsuki. Could all of this have something to do with the strange name, Azura, that the Immortal of Six Paths had given him? Azura and Indra, how long has it been? In the infinite reincarnation, the two of you fought and killed each other, but in this life, the two of you can directly work together to fight together. This scene has appeared countless times in my dreams, but when all of this happened in front of me, it still makes my heart full of joy. Listening to Hagoromo Otsutsuki's words, Naruto has been very keen to understand that the Asura in Hagoromo Otsutsuki's mouth refers to himself, and the so-called Indra refers to Sasuke standing beside him. Naruto bowed to Hagoromo Otsutsuki very respectfully, and then said to Hagoromo Otsutsuki, "Dear Hagoromo Otsutsuki, I don't understand who you mean by Asura and Indra, but it's definitely not me and Sasuke. My name is Uzumaki Naruto, and my partner's name is Uchiha Sasuke. We are who we are, and we will only be who we are." Listening to Naruto's words, Hagoromo Otsutsuki's eyes flashed with a hint of surprise, and then he said to Naruto, "So, it's true that I'm wrong." With a bit of nostalgia, Hagoromo Otsutsuki's eyes swept over Naruto and Sasuke. "I used to have 2 children, and I believe you have already guessed their names. Their names are Otsutsuki Indra and Otsutsuki Asura. In the past, a lot of things happened, and if I explain them one by one, I don't think you want to listen. Anyway, in the end, my 2 children died because of the conflict of ideas between each other, but their death wasn't a real death. They left their chakra as a seed in the ninja world, and almost in every era, their chakra will be attached to 2 people, making these 2 people fated to be enemies, and the battle between them will never end. But in this life, you must also know that the chakra of the 2 of them is attached to the 2 of you. But you 2 are not affected by my 2 sons' chakra at all, and you 2 can sincerely cooperate to fight against the enemies of the ninja world. This made me very happy, and it also made me determined to let my remnant soul appear in front of you at all costs, and give you the power to defeat powerful enemies. After all of this is related to the Jubi. Sasuke has already investigated the relationship between Hagoromo Otsutsuki and the Jubi from some ancient books of Nangongja, so when he heard Hagoromo Otsutsuki's words, he didn't have any doubts. Although Naruto was confused at the moment, since Sasuke seemed to trust what Hagoromo Otsutsuki said, Naruto naturally chose to believe Sasuke. Seeing Naruto and Sasuke directly step forward in front of him, Hagoromo Otsutsuki's heart was filled with an unspeakable emotion, and directly injected the remaining power of 6 paths into Naruto and Sasuke's body, and then said to Naruto and Sasuke, "I can't directly give you powerful strength, but I can send you a seed that can take root and germinate. When certain conditions are met, the seed in your body will grow quickly, providing you with powerful strength to help you defeat all powerful enemies in front of you." In the interior of their souls that Naruto and Sasuke couldn't see, a great sun and a bright moon appeared in the depths of their souls. In their souls and bodies, weak but powerful chakra constantly appeared and gathered toward the great sun and bright moon in their souls. Chapter 691. At this moment, on the battlefield, Uchiha Madara has completely controlled the 9 tails and the Hachibi. Whether it was Naruto or Killer Bee, both of them were nailed directly to their joints by several black iron rods and fell directly to the ground. For some reason, the Senjutsu chakra on Naruto's body has stopped, but the toad-like characteristics of his body still remained. Looking at Naruto and Killer Bee, who have been completely controlled by him, Uchiha Madara's face finally showed a somewhat gratified smile. Only one step. Only one step, and he can realize his plan and bring true peace to the ninja world, proving that what he has been doing is right. Uchiha Madara's hand began to print quickly, and suddenly, many thick iron chains rushed out of Uchiha Madara's abdomen. These iron chains are the Geto chains used by the Geto Mazo to seal the tailed beasts. Under the guidance of Uchiha Madara, the Geto chains flew in the direction of Naruto and Killer Bee as if they have their own consciousness. The moment the Geto chains touched the bodies of Naruto and Killer Bee, they directly integrated into their bodies, and directly entered the seal that sealed the Hachibi and the 9 tails. Although the tailed beasts are very powerful, they are also suppressed by the Jubi. Facing the Geto chains, although the Hachibi and the 9 tails are trying their best to struggle, their struggles have little effect. Nangongja looked at Uchiha Madara, who was extracting the power of the Hachibi and the Nine Tails, and he was very anxious. After all, the power displayed by Uchiha Obito in the Six Paths mode was too strong. If it wasn't for Naruto and Sasuke's sudden burst of power and Obito's focus on the Jubi God tree spreading in the battlefield, it wouldn't be so easy to deal with Uchiha Obito. Now, Uchiha Madara has a stronger physique and more perseverance than the previous Uchiha Obito. His eyes are the same as the Six Paths Sennin's Rinnegan. Before he obtained the Jubi and became the Jubi Column Force, he was already powerful. Once Uchiha Madara becomes the Jubi Column Force and obtains the power of the Six Paths Sennins, who in this world can stop Uchiha Madara? Six Paths Sennin's resurrection to fight against Uchiha Madara? Don't be kidding. Nangongja looked at the 4 wood clones of Uchiha Madara who were still fighting with him. At this moment, the 4 wood clones were covered with scars, and the chakra that was distributed by Uchiha Madara in their bodies was constantly consumed in the battle with Nangongja. Now, the 4 wood clones are on the verge of collapse. Must stop Uchiha Madara. Ha! Nangongja's sword chi and internal strength surged into the Sword of Calamity in his hand. The dark Sword of Calamity bloomed with brilliant light at this moment. Sensing the response of the Sword of Calamity in his hand, Nangongja directly raised the Sword of Calamity in his hand, ignoring the 4 wood clones that were attacking him. Gather! A short word burst out from Nangongja's mouth like a god's edict, and it reverberated through the entire battlefield like a clap of thunder. The sword chi continued to flow from the Sword of Calamity and Nangongja's body. The sword chi was very small, almost the size of an ordinary silver needle, but these sword chi were particularly dense. The sword chi surged around Nangongja, and the dense sword chi almost completely covered Nangongja. The 4 wood clones that were attacking Nangongja could not stop at this moment, and directly crashed into the barrier formed by Nangongja's sword chi. The sharp sword energy continued to mince the bodies of the 4 wood clones. The minced parts lost their luster almost instantly and turned into wood. Then, in the blink of an eye, they turned into pieces of wood dregs. Gather! Nangongja roared again, and the countless sword chi that lingered around him slowly condensed into the Sword of Calamity in Nangongja's hand. Originally, each sword chi was actually emitting a faint blue light, but when the countless sword chi gathered together, the blue light became particularly dense. Sky Sword. That's right, countless sword chi continued to condense. At this moment, the move Nangongja used was the Sky Sword that he had used before. Unlike the huge Sky Sword that he used to fight against large enemies, the Sky Sword that Nangongja used now was obviously much smaller in size. However, the reduction in size did not mean that the power of the Sky Sword had decreased. In fact, compared to the huge Sky Sword from before, the Sky Sword that Nangongja used now was more in line with his concept of the Sky Sword. At this moment, the Sky Sword was almost 3 times the size of the Sword of Calamity. In terms of length, it was similar to a normal person's body. The blue Sky Sword was suspended in the air where Nangongja pointed the tip of the sword. At this moment, the Sky Sword was particularly condensed, and even the small lines on the sword's hilt and spine could be seen clearly. With a swing of the Sword of Calamity in his hand, the Sky Sword that was suspended above Nangongja's body rushed directly towards Uchiha Madara as if it had received an order. The Sky Sword itself was condensed from sword chi, and the sharp sword chi naturally gave the Sky Sword an unstoppable momentum. After Nangongja pointed the target for the Sky Sword, the huge sword instantly rushed out. Even the air was easily cut by the Sky Sword, and there was even an obvious flame tail behind the hilt of the Sky Sword. Chi! Accompanied by a harsh sound, the Sky Sword under the control of Nangongja directly rushed towards the direction of Uchiha Madara. The timing of Nangongja's attack can be said to be just right. At this moment, Uchiha Madara almost put all his mind on suppressing the struggle of the Hachibi and the Nine Tails, and directly pulling them out of Naruto and Killer Bee's body. If he dodged Nangong's attack, it was very likely that Uchiha Madara's action of extracting the tailed beasts would be hindered or even failed, which was what Uchiha Madara didn't want to see. Therefore, when Nangongja attacked him, Uchiha Madara directly turned a blind eye to the powerful Sky Sword and focused on extracting the tailed beasts. Chapter 692. Hot blood splattered on the ground, and the scarlet color of the blood made the brown soil a bit dazzling. The blue, heavenly sword was inserted straight into Uchiha Madara's chest, and blood flowed along the heavenly sword to the ground. But whether it was Nangongja, the attacker, or Uchiha Madara, the expression on their faces was very strange at this moment. His attack directly hit Uchiha Madara and passed through his chest, but there was no joy on Nangongja's face. His body was directly hit, and even with the Senja Takuma cells in his body, he could not recover quickly, but there was no worry on Uchiha Madara's face. Instead, Nangongja's face was full of worry, and Uchiha Madara's face was full of joy of achieving his goal. All of this was because at this moment, the Gedo chain that extended from Uchiha Madara's abdomen had all been retracted back into Uchiha Madara's body. Along with the Gedo chain, the 9 tails and the Hachibi also returned to Madara's body. Yes, before Nangongja's heavenly sword hit Uchiha Madara had directly pulled the 9 tails and the Hachibi out of Naruto and Killer Bee. At this moment, the Gedo Mazo sealed in Uchiha Madara's body finally gathered the power of the 9 tails and became a real complete existence. And such a powerful force was still accumulating in Uchiha Madara's body, and the process of the Jubi's completion has become completely unstoppable. The Jubi's violent and incomparably huge chakra emerged directly from Uchiha Madara's body, and this chakra brought infinite pain to Uchiha Madara's body and spirit, and constantly transformed Uchiha Madara's own body. His skin gradually turned a little pale, and his originally flamboyant black hair became completely white at this moment. A forehead protector with 2 horns of unknown material directly appeared on Uchiha Madara's forehead, and tied up his long hair. The white robe decorated with Magatama patterns also directly hung on Uchiha Madara's body. Compared to Uchiha Obito's strange 6 paths mode before, Uchiha Madara entered the 6 paths mode looked more majestic. Uchiha Madara stretched out his hand in front of him, and the 6 paths monk staff appeared directly in his hand, and the 9 truth-seeking balls began to quietly float behind Uchiha Madara. Uchiha Madara held the heavenly sword inserted in his chest with his hand. Although the fierce sword chi was constantly cutting the skin on Uchiha Madara's hand, the small wounds were directly healed in a flash. Your strength is not bad, but unfortunately, you still lose to the will of heaven. Yes, Nangongja's heavenly sword was actually a powerful move that could kill Uchiha Madara, who didn't collect the 9-tailed beasts to form the 6 paths mode, but Uchiha Madara took the initiative to collect the 9-tailed beasts, which made Nangongja's heavenly sword a joke. Uchiha Madara directly pulled out the heavenly sword from his chest and gently touched the heavenly sword with the 6 paths monk staff in his hand. The heavenly sword condensed by the sword chi directly turned into smoke and disappeared without a trace in an instant. Nangongja, you are a good enemy, and I, Uchiha Madara, give you the recognition you deserve. So you don't have to directly become the nourishment of the 10 tails like the others, I grant you death. As if the gods had mercy, Uchiha Madara's eyes swept across Nangongja without the slightest emotion. Uchiha Madara pointed the 6 paths monk staff in his hand at Nangongja's direction and lightly shouted at Nangongja, 6 paths immortal art, Een lightning school. The purple thunder directly extended from the head of the 6 paths monk staff like the branches of a big tree and directly shot in the direction of Nangongja. The thunder spread very quickly and covered a very large area. Although Nangongja began to prepare to dodge the moment he noticed Uchiha Madara's attack, his body was a little sluggish because he had consumed too much internal force just now. In the end, Nangongja was still hit by the purple thunder. The 6 paths immortal art itself was the pinnacle of the immortal art, and it had an extremely powerful attack power. After seeing Nangongzhi directly hit, Uchiha Madara didn't pay attention to Nangongzhi. Instead, he prepared to accumulate the power in his body and wait for the night to use the infinite Tsukuyomi with the help of the moon. But just as he turned around, Uchiha Madara also noticed that there was a change in the place where Nangongzhi fell. Slowly turning his head, Uchiha Madara was surprised to see that Nangongzhi, who had just been hit by the Six Paths Immortal Art, Bean Lightning School, was now standing there with his tribulation sword. "It's just thunder, what's there to be arrogant about? I have already experienced the baptism of more powerful thunder." At this moment, Nangongzhi was wearing a lion-shaped black heavy armor. Black thunder constantly flashed on the thunder heavy armor. The tribulation sword in Nangongzhi's hand was originally a sword of heaven's wrath. When it was born, it was not tolerated by the heavens and earth, and it directly sent down thunder to destroy him. But by chance, the tribulation sword directly found a chance to survive from the intolerable heavens and earth, and preserved it. The tribulation sword contained the seed of heaven's punishment thunder. In order to train his body, Nangongzhi had guided the thunder from the tribulation sword to his body more than once. Even now, Nangongzhi's body couldn't completely resist the corrosion of heaven's punishment thunder. But because he had been using heaven's punishment thunder to train his body, Nangongzhi's resistance to thunder could be said to be surprisingly high. Although the Six Paths Immortal Art, Bean Lightning School was very powerful, it was still thunder that could be controlled. Heaven's punishment thunder was a thunder that was condensed from the power of the heavens and earth. The two were completely different. It was precisely because of this that Nangongzhi was able to withstand the attack of the Bean Lightning School, and even stand here facing Uchiha Madara. "You are really giving me more and more surprises. But you are destined to die in the hands of a living god." Chapter 693. Will Grave, Border Prison. A familiar yet tricky ninjutsu was once again used by Uchiha Madara. Uchiha Madara's Kage had the complete strength of Uchiha Madara. At this moment, after entering the Six Paths mode, all aspects of his abilities had been enhanced to the limit. Similarly, the Kage had also made great progress. The four Kages rushed towards Nangongzhi together with Uchiha Madara. Nangongzhi also struggled to pull out the tribulation sword that he had been using to support himself. Although he staggered a little, he still stood on the ground without taking a step back. To be honest, Nangongzhi's current physical condition wasn't good. Although his body had a certain resistance to lightning, it wasn't immune. Even if Nangongzhi was strong, he couldn't completely ignore an attack like the Six Paths Immortal technique, right? At this moment, Nangongzhi's body was a little numb because of the lightning. The Six Paths Immortal technique directly invaded Nangongzhi's body through such an attack. It wanted to block Nangongzhi's meridians to restrict Nangongzhi's movements. However, compared to a ninja who only knew how to extract a large amount of energy without caring about the tendons and veins, Nangongzhi's internal strength had a more obvious effect on his body. Nangongzhi's meridians had become very tough and wide under the nourishment of his internal strength for many years. Because of the protection of Li Yang's black armor, the amount of Six Paths Immortal technique that could invade Nangongzhi's body was very little. Although the Six Paths Immortal technique's level of energy was very high, it didn't affect Nangongzhi much. The moment they rushed in front of Nangongzhi, the four Kages immediately disappeared into the void. Uchiha Madara directly held the Six Paths Immortal staff and knocked towards Nangongzhi. Perhaps because he had some experience in using long weapons, the trajectory of his attack towards Nangongzhi was quite exquisite. But what was more eye-catching was the unparalleled speed and power contained in the Six Paths Immortal staff. When Uchiha Madara first attacked, Nangongzhi could still see the trajectory of the Six Paths Immortal staff. But halfway through the attack, the Six Paths Immortal staff became blurry due to the powerful speed. Knowing that there was no way to see the direction of Uchiha Madara's attack with just the dynamic vision of his eyes, Nangongzhi slowly closed his eyes, and the sword domain that had been converging around his body expanded in an instant. However, the sword domain was a very powerful thing to deal with people who were weaker than him. But in the face of people who were similar or stronger than him, the role it could play was more of a supporting role. At this moment, Nangongzhi was using the sword domain to replace his eyes. Through this method, he could sense where Uchiha Madara's attack was going. Waving the Heaven's Tribulation sword in his hand, it was quite an understatement. Nangongzhi directly hit the Heaven's Tribulation sword in his hand with the Six Paths Immortal staff in Uchiha Madara's hand. Internal force instantly surged from Nangongzhi's body, and a large amount of internal force directly attached to the place where the Heaven's Tribulation sword and the Six Paths Immortal staff intersected, sticking the two together. Although Nangongzhi's swordsmanship was mostly focused on fast and powerful attacks, Nangongzhi also had considerable attainments in soft and tough defensive swordsmanship. Putting his mind completely on the Heaven's Tribulation sword in his hand, the powerful force attached to the Six Paths Immortal staff was directly reduced by more than half. Seeing that he had taken the initiative, Nangongzhi immediately took advantage of this opportunity to burst out a powerful force from his waist and directly broke through the huge force contained in the Six Paths Immortal staff in Uchiha Madara's hand, and wrapped a part of the force directly rushed towards Uchiha Madara's body. The powerful force directly acted on Uchiha Madara's body. In the face of a part of his own power and the full force of the eruption of Nangongzhi, Uchiha Madara's body was involuntarily sent flying. However, after his body retreated a few steps in the air, Uchiha Madara directly turned his body in the air, and then directly rushed towards Nangongzhi as if he was stepping on the ground. Come on! At this moment, Nangongzhi was completely immersed in the battle with Uchiha Madara. The warlike blood hidden in Nangongzhi's body was burning. Compared to the vigorous fighting spirit in his chest, Nangongzhi directly forgot about the fact that he was in a bad state and was seriously injured. In other words, Nangongzhi was now intoxicated by the battle with the powerful Uchiha Madara. Now that the battlefield was particularly empty, the ninja allied forces and the disciples of the Bloodcloak Pavilion could only passively stay on the battlefield and did not dare to join the battle. Tsunade and Orochimaru were hiding somewhere, and now, the only one who could fight was Nangongzhi. On the empty battlefield, there was only Uchiha Madara and Nangongzhi attacking each other back and forth. Uchiha Madara occasionally used ninjutsu and Nangongzhi's flying sword energy directly lingered around the two of them, making anyone who was not strong enough dare to approach them. At this moment, whether it was the ninjas of the ninja allied forces or the disciples of the Bloodcloak Pavilion, they were all watching the fierce battle between Nangongzhi and Uchiha Madara from a distance. Because they were not strong enough, they still couldn't see how thrilling the battle between Nangongzhi and Uchiha Madara was, but the aftermath of the battle between the two had already told everyone that such a battle was not something they could get involved in. Not knowing when it started, one of the disciples of the Bloodcloak Pavilion put his hands together on his chest and prayed silently. With one, the second, and the third, the ninjas of the ninja allied forces and the disciples of the Bloodcloak Pavilion all joined in the prayer. Now, there was no one else who could still fight against Uchiha Madara except for Nangongzhi. If there was a definition for Nangongzhi's existence, perhaps the most appropriate theme would be, the last hope of the ninja world. In this battle, Nangongzhi won, and peace would be restored in the ninja world, and there would no longer be such a threat to the whole world. Nangongzhi was defeated, then the world would fall into the false infinite Tsukuyomi as Uchiha Madara planned, and enjoy the false peace. Chapter 694. Nangongzhi straightened his body. Even the heavy armor and his tired spirit did not bend his back. Blood seeped out from the gaps in the black armor, and even his hands that were holding the tribulation sword were trembling slightly. At this moment, Nangongzhi had reached his limit. Uchiha Madara and the shadow that he summoned with the Tomb of Samsara, border prison, attacked Nangongzhi again and again. At the beginning, Nangongzhi could still deal with it. However, as Uchiha Madara attacked endlessly, Nangongja's spirit and body became more and more tired. It was now the 29th minute of the battle between Nangongja and Uchiha Madara. In these 29 minutes, Nangongja was constantly squeezing his spirit and body, just to continue fighting with Uchiha Madara. In the end, Nangongja's mind became almost blank. Without the enthusiasm to fight, without the strong emotions to protect his cherished things, Nangongja's mind was almost empty. Even his consciousness became blurred. Even Nangongja himself did not know what kept him fighting like this. "I'm really tired." For some reason, such a thought suddenly appeared in Nangongja's mind. Nangongja's legs were as heavy as lead. Nangongja's head felt like it was being hit by a heavy hammer every minute and every second. It was painful and numb. The tribulation sword in Nangongja's hand had become a burden that weighed more than 1,000 pounds. Kacha, the sound of metal clashing rang out abruptly. Nangongja, who had been maintaining a standing posture, was now half kneeling on the ground. Nangongja had always regarded the tribulation sword as his important partner. At this moment, the sword's edge was lowered, but Nangongja's weak hand was gently supporting it. It seemed like it would really fall to the ground in a moment. Uchiha Madara did not continue to attack Nangongja. Even the shadow that he released outside his body was all taken back by Uchiha Madara. Uchiha Madara's eyes were no longer indifferent at this moment, and he no longer had the high and mighty demeanor of a god. At the end of the day, Uchiha Madara was also a warrior. Step by step, he fought a bloody battle to achieve his goals. Now that he saw Nangongja, such an enemy, fall in front of him, Uchiha Madara could not help but put himself in the role of Nangongja. If he was in Nangongja's position, he would also fight to the point where he could no longer move. Just as Uchiha Madara silently looked at Nangongja's half-kneeling figure on the ground, Black Zetsu, who had been hidden for a long time, finally revealed his figure. Black Zetsu stood beside Uchiha Madara and looked at Nangongja's half-kneeling figure on the ground. After a flash of surprise, he slightly bowed his body and said to Uchiha Madara, "Madara-sama. This guy is still breathing. If you don't mind, let me." Before Black Zetsu finished his words, Uchiha Madara directly turned his head and stared at Black Zetsu's eyes. Although Uchiha Madara's eyes did not express any obvious emotion at this moment, Black Zetsu knew that what he just said must have stimulated Uchiha Madara. "I do mind." Uchiha Madara's tone was like a hammer, directly spitting out from his mouth. After saying such words, Uchiha Madara directly turned around and walked toward the center of the slightly withered, ten-tailed sacred tree. Black Zetsu looked back at Uchiha Madara who had gone far, and then looked back at Nangongja who was half-kneeling on the ground. After a little thought, he also followed the footsteps of Uchiha Madara. He's just an outlier who goes against the mainstream. When his plan is realized, such a small role will be nothing. Uchiha Madara walked to the center of the sacred tree and looked at the withered buds. Uchiha Madara slowly put his hand on the withered stem. His eyes were wide open, and even two scarlet blood flowed out of his eyes. Powerful fluctuations were directly generated from Uchiha Madara's body. Blood oozing out of the eyes was originally a manifestation of the extreme power of the eyes, but at this moment, the blood flowing out of Uchiha Madara's eyes became more and more, and there was no sign of stopping. Finally, the forehead protector that bound Uchiha's white hair directly burst at this moment. Without the protection of the forehead protector, a vertical line in the center of Uchiha Madara's forehead became clear. Slowly, the vertical line seemed to begin to split, revealing its true posture. It was a dark red eye, and on the dark red eye, there were Rinnegan lines and Tomo circles. This was a 9-Tomo Rinnegan, and also the most obvious characteristic of the ten-tailed column force. With the appearance of the 9-Tomo Rinnegan, Uchiha Madara's body began to surge with a large amount of powerful chakra. This was the chakra of the ten-tailed. The chakra quickly filled the withered vines and stems of the sacred tree, and the stems of the sacred tree, which had fallen to the ground, finally stood up again. This time, there was no need to extract chakra from anywhere. The chakra provided by Uchiha Madara alone has completely supplemented the needs of the sacred tree. In a very short time, the buds at the tip of the sacred tree have completely swelled, and it seems that only a small opportunity is needed to bloom directly. Uchiha Madara increased his chakra output, seemingly hoping to fill the last gap. Ten-tailed. Show your true posture to the world. Uchiha Madara shouted loudly with a fanatical look on his face. Looking at the appearance of Uchiha Madara, Black Zetsu's mouth quietly hung a smile. He split a part of his body and directly entered the stem of the ten-tailed, and inside the stem, the shadow quietly occupied the position of the heart of the flower. Finally, the flower at the tip of the sacred tree bloomed. Pop, the crisp sound of blooming appeared, and the petals began to stretch their figures, showing their beauty, and in the stamen at the tip of the sacred tree, there was also a 9-tomo rinnegan. At the moment when the petals bloomed, the world, which was still daytime, was suddenly shrouded in darkness. A moon appeared in the sky, quietly releasing its blood-red brilliance. Chapter 695. The bloody brilliance directly enveloped the entire land, and the dark night sky continued to spread across the entire ninja world. The more the night sky spread, the more the bloody moonlight shrouded. Seeing that the whole world had suddenly turned from day to night, everyone began to panic instinctively. Countless people walked out of their houses and began to run in all directions, while those with power and influence entered the bunkers that they had built to protect their lives to hide. The bloody moonlight wasn't just a simple light, but it also contained spiritual power, directly invading everyone's spiritual world in a violent and unstoppable manner. The minds of everyone who was illuminated by the moonlight were directly pulled into the infinite Tsukuyomi. The people hiding in the bunker didn't dare to walk out for a short period of time. They could only tremble and wait for everything to end. After the flower at the top of the stem bloomed, the vine that had stopped spreading began to spread again. Uchiha Madara slowly took his hand away from the stem, and then relied on his own feet to communicate with the Jubi God tree directly through chakra. Uchiha Madara's hand began to quickly form hand seals. 6-path Senjutsu, God Tree World Descending. The power of chakra, 6-path power, and rinnegan in Uchiha Madara's body directly burst out, using 6-path power to balance and amplify these energies. After such a ninjutsu was released, the speed of the Jubi God tree's extension accelerated again. Moreover, not only were these vines extending, but they were also constantly branching. The branches of various sizes directly covered the ground densely. This density of coverage directly made it more difficult for everyone to hide, and a large number of tree branches directly rushed towards everyone. As if it had found its target, the tree branches directly attacked the crowd. But strangely, there were so many tree branches, but they vaguely avoided all the disciples of the blood-robed pavilion. That's right, although the Jubi God tree world descending is very powerful and can autonomously identify the enemy, the way they identify the enemy is very stiff, that is, based on whether the enemy has chakra in their body. Once the target doesn't have chakra in their body, these people will no longer be the target of the Jubi God tree world descending attack. No matter how much chakra a ninja has in their body, once the Jubi God tree detects the chakra in their body, it will immediately entangle these people, constantly extracting chakra from these entangled targets, and then use this chakra to constantly strengthen its body. Looking at the world that has become quiet, and only the sound of the vine spreading out of the tree could be heard, Madara didn't know why his heart couldn't help but feel empty. Humans were like this. When they achieved the goal they had been fighting for a long time, their hearts would become empty. When Uchiha Madara directly trampled the entire ninja world under his feet, the emptiness in his heart became very obvious. Black Zetsu slowly walked in front of Uchiha Madara, bowed deeply to Uchiha Madara, and said to Uchiha Madara, "Congratulations to Madara-sama for achieving your wish, so these people don't understand now, but they will eventually know what a great thing Madara-sama has done." Although Uchiha Madara has always been full of confidence and domineering in everything, but to be honest, even if Uchiha Madara himself doesn't admit it, his heart is very empty. Pulling the entire ninja world into the infinite Tsukuyomi, bringing eternal peace to the ninja world, and proving that he is a person who surpasses Senju Takuma, such a goal was actually intentionally or unintentionally led by Black Zetsu to set up such a goal for Uchiha Madara. Listening to Black Zetsu's compliment, Uchiha Madara didn't move at all, but his eyes were staring at the red moon hanging in the sky with a bit of emptiness. At this moment, Black Zetsu was standing very close to Uchiha Madara. After Black Zetsu bowed his waist so that people couldn't see his face, and then he said to Uchiha Madara, "I don't know what Madara-sama is going to do with Uchiha Obito?" After hearing Black Zetsu's words, Uchiha Madara's eyes finally recovered a bit, and then he said to Black Zetsu who was bowing in front of him, "Zetsu, do you still need to ask me such a stupid question?" Hearing Uchiha Madara's words, Black Zetsu bowed his waist a little more and said to Uchiha Madara, "Please tell me, Madara-sama." Uchiha Madara glanced at Black Zetsu and then said to Black Zetsu, "Uchiha Obito himself is just a clone of my plan. At that time, my vitality was exhausted, so I cultivated him to replace me in carrying out my plan. You are also involved in these things, so I don't need to say anything more. In order to completely control Uchiha Obito in my hands, I spent a lot of effort, and even specially arranged a good play of companions killing each other, so that Uchiha Obito became a puppet at my mercy. As for now, the White Zetsu army is almost wiped out. You don't have a suitable body to possess, so I'll give you this body. It's just a useless thing anyway." Listening to Uchiha Madara's words, Black Zetsu murmured, "Useless thing? That's a bit interesting." Uchiha Madara. Unlike the previous flattering tone, Black Zetsu at this moment was obviously very offensive. After hearing Black Zetsu's words, Black Zetsu felt that something was wrong and wanted to attack Black Zetsu with the six-path monk staff in his hand. Suddenly, a six-path monk staff appeared in one of Black Zetsu's hands and directly hit Uchiha Madara's abdomen. At this moment, the source of Uchiha Madara's power was the jubi sealed in his body. All the chakra in his body were integrated into the jubi's body, so when the six-path monk staff touched Uchiha Madara's abdomen, he was surprised to find that he couldn't move. After Black Zetsu saw that he had controlled Uchiha Madara, he also straightened his body. The eyes of Uchiha Obito, which had always been a bit dull, were full of spirit at this moment. "Is it you? Uchiha Obito?" Chapter 696. Originally, Uchiha Obito's spiritual and physical control was almost overwhelming, but Uchiha Obito's own will still maintained a certain level of consciousness, and everything that happened outside was seen by Uchiha Obito. When he was observing everything on the battlefield as a bystander who couldn't participate in it, Obito also found that there was something fishy going on. Just now, when Uchiha Madara was fully urging chakra to mature the ten-tailed tree of God, Uchiha Obito clearly felt that Black Zetsu's control over him was greatly weakened, leaving only a fragile barrier to prevent him from controlling his body. When he realized that the opportunity to get rid of Black Zetsu's control was in front of him, Uchiha Obito also gathered all his spiritual power and attacked the last barrier set by Black Zetsu again and again. It stands to reason that such an attack should be immediately noticed by Black Zetsu, but Black Zetsu, who was controlling his body, did not seem to care about such an attack at all, and did not even ask for help from Uchiha Madara. Although he didn't know what Black Zetsu was planning, Uchiha Obito still attacked the barrier with all his strength, trying to regain control of his body. Finally, under Uchiha Obito's repeated attacks, the barrier was finally broken. After breaking the barrier, Uchiha Obito found that Black Zetsu, who occupied his body, only left a spiritual shell in his mind. Without any effort, Uchiha Obito directly swallowed the consciousness of Black Zetsu and took control of his body. Disguising himself, Uchiha Obito began to talk to Uchiha Madara as Black Zetsu. Originally, Uchiha Obito could still control his emotions, but after hearing that the mutual attack between Kakashi and Rin was a trap set by Uchiha Madara to completely control him, there was no way to calm down the anger in his heart. After all, Uchiha Obito was also the ten-tailed column force for a period of time, and he was very clear about the pros and cons of sealing the ten-tailed in his body to obtain the six-path mode. For those who are inferior to him, the six-path mode is invincible, but for those who also have the six-path power, there are still ways to deal with the ten-tailed column force. All the six-path power in his body were gathered together, and a six-path staff was directly held in Uchiha Obito's hand. With the six-path staff against Uchiha Madara's abdomen, he cut off the connection between Uchiha Madara and Ten-Tailed Tail, so that Uchiha Madara had no way to freely control his body. However, Obito knew that this kind of control was only temporary. After losing the Ten-Tailed Tail, there was no way for him to defeat Uchiha Madara, so Uchiha Obito began to overdraw his life force to constantly enhance the power of the six-path power he condensed. The six-path power directly invaded Uchiha Madara's body, passed through the seal of the same root, and directly connected to the ten-tailed tail sealed in Uchiha Madara's body. After extracting a part of the chakra from each of the ten-tailed beasts, Uchiha Obito also realized that he could not hold on for too long. The Manjikyu Sharingan in his right eye immediately began to rotate, and the Manjikyu Dojutsu, Kamui, was immediately cast, and Uchiha Obito immediately disappeared. When Uchiha Obito reappeared, not only did he appear, but Watergate also stood directly beside Uchiha Obito. Yes, Uchiha Obito released Watergate, who was trapped in the Kamui space. Naruto, at this moment, the place where Uchiha Obito and Watergate stood was the place where Naruto was defeated before. Several iron rods were directly inserted into Naruto's joints, and the wounds that were originally gurgling with blood had stopped bleeding at this moment. The blood-stained and tattered clothes silently told Watergate what Naruto had experienced. Looking at his own child's miserable appearance, even the always calm Watergate had a majestic anger in his eyes. Just now in the Kamui space, when Uchiha Obito appeared, Watergate immediately launched an attack. In order to block Obito's attack and explain the current situation of the battlefield to Watergate, Uchiha Obito had to use some of his six paths power to restrict Watergate and explain the situation. Although in the end, Watergate finally listened to Uchiha Obito's words, but at the same time, it also consumed more than half of the six paths power that was keeping Uchiha Obito alive. Now, Obito has no time. Obito half-knelt on his body and put the six paths monk staff in his hand on Naruto's stomach. Originally, Obito hoped to pull out the Nine Tails chakra and put it back in Naruto's body to restore Naruto's vitality. But because the power of the 10 tails mixed with each other, the chakra that Uchiha Obito pulled out at this moment was extremely mixed. Uchiha Obito didn't know whether this chakra could restore Naruto's life, but at this moment, the situation was very critical, and this was the only way to try to save Naruto's life. Uchiha Obito didn't know why he desperately wanted to save Naruto's life at this moment. Was it because Naruto was very similar to himself, and he wanted to take revenge on Uchiha Madara who ruined his life, or was it because he felt guilty for his teacher, or some other reason? But now, there was no time for Uchiha Obito to figure out his inner thoughts. Uchiha Obito was simply following his own thoughts. When a bird is about to die, its cry is sad, and when a man is about to die, his words are kind. Perhaps only when people truly accept their impending death, can they really start to selflessly do some good deeds that they never thought of before? After directly injecting the chakra mixed with the Nine Tails chakra from Uchiha Madara's body, Uchiha Obito finally lost the strength to move, and sat weakly beside Naruto. Watergate looked at Uzumaki Naruto very nervously, his eyes full of anxiety and worry. His wife, Uzumaki Kushina, also had the same experience of having her tailed beast extracted from her body. Would his son have to go through the same experience of being separated by life and death? Chapter 697. When the chakra mixed with the nine-tailed beasts entered Naruto's body, it immediately went berserk. After all, this was just the chakra that Uchiha Obito casually extracted from the ten-tailed beast's body. It did not contain the will of the tailed beast itself. It only contained the instinctive berserk aura of the tailed beast chakra. Without the suppression of the six-path power, the chakra immediately went berserk in Naruto's body. Not only did the tailed beast chakra constantly hurt Naruto's body, it also stimulated the immortal technique chakra that had been dormant in Naruto's body. Perhaps the immortal technique chakra and the tailed beast chakra were incompatible in nature. At this moment, Naruto's body had become a battlefield for the tailed beast chakra and the immortal technique chakra to attack each other. At this moment, Naruto's body began to undergo an extremely strange change. Part of his body was controlled by the tailed beast chakra and directly covered with the chakra like a bubble. The other part was controlled by the immortal technique chakra and showed a toad-like state. The tailed beast and toad-like state simultaneously caused Naruto's body to change in an unpredictable direction. At this moment, Naruto's body looked very terrifying just by looking at it from the outside. Seeing that Naruto's body had become like this, Uchiha Obito also forced himself to use the six-path staff in his hand to place it on Naruto's body again. He directly injected all the six-path power in his body into Naruto's body, hoping to use the six-path power as a mediator to alleviate the mutual attack between the immortal technique chakra and the tailed beast chakra. Bo-Fong Watergate also immediately came in front of his son, placed his hand on Naruto's body, and injected the immortal technique chakra that had condensed in his body into Naruto's body. He wanted to use the immortal technique chakra in his body to soothe the rampaging immortal technique chakra in Naruto's body. Under the joint efforts of Uchiha Obito and Bo-Fong Watergate, the two types of energy in Naruto's body were also in a relatively fragile balance. However, this balance was destined to not last long. After all, Uchiha Obito was no longer the ten-tailed column force. The six-path power in his body was just a rootless duckweed. There was also a limit to how long Bo-Fong Watergate could stay in sage mode. After this period, there would naturally be a certain period of interruption. At this moment, Uchiha Obito and Bo-Fong Watergate could only pray that Naruto could recover his consciousness in this limited time and then control the energy in his body. However, Naruto was destined to not hear the prayers of Bo-Fong Watergate and Uchiha Obito. At this moment, Naruto was completely immersed in his spiritual space. Perhaps because the tailed beast in his body was removed, Naruto's spiritual space was no longer as white as before. Instead, it was completely dark. After Naruto met the Sage of Six Paths, he was directly imprisoned in his spiritual space. He kept trying to escape, but he couldn't. At this moment, Naruto's heart was even a little depressed. But at this moment, a ray of light suddenly appeared in the dark spiritual space. When he saw this ray of light, Naruto had already instinctively felt that this ray of light was the possibility of him leaving the spiritual space. After all, everything in Naruto's spiritual space was actually controlled by Naruto's subconscious. Naruto jumped lightly, directly suspended in the air, and rushed toward the place where the light was. As Naruto got closer and closer to the place where the light was, the source of the light finally became clear. It was a somewhat abstract Great Sunday. Don't know if it was because the Great Sun had condensed enough energy or because of Naruto's approach, but the moment Naruto approached the Great Sun, a brilliant light burst out from the Great Sun. In the outside world, an illusory Great Sun mark suddenly appeared between Naruto's eyebrows. The moment the Great Sun mark appeared, the tailed beast chakra and senjutsu chakra that were controlled by Uchiha Obito and Watergate in Naruto's body were directly attracted and absorbed by the Great Sun mark. Not only the tailed beast chakra and senjutsu chakra in Naruto's body, but also the senjutsu chakra in Watergate's body and the remaining six paths power in Uchiha Obito's body were directly absorbed by the Great Sun mark. All kinds of energy were directly absorbed by the Great Sun mark, like rivers converging into the sea. All kinds of energy in Naruto's body were directly gathered together and became stable. Almost at the same time, Uchiha Sasuke, who was sleeping beside Tsunade and Orochimaru, had a bright moon mark on his forehead. The outer path's power and senjutsu chakra in Uchiha Sasuke's body that blocked his meridians were also absorbed by the bright moon mark. What kind of power is this? Pure In, it's simply a miracle of creation, the origin of everything. When he saw the bright moon mark on Sasuke's forehead, Orochimaru, who had been stabilizing Uchiha Sasuke's violent outer path's power and senjutsu chakra in various ways with Tsunade, couldn't help but show some excitement in his eyes. For a person obsessed with exploring the origin of the world, such an inconspicuous mark is simply the most precious treasure. Seeing Orochimaru's fanatical eyes, Tsunade also frowned and said to Orochimaru, "Orochimaru, focus. The outer path's power and chakra in Sasuke's body can no longer be controlled stably." After Orochimaru waved his hand at Tsunade, his eyes showed a bit of surprise and fanaticism as he said, "There is a registration suppression between the energy itself. Bijou chakra and senjutsu chakra are superior to ordinary chakra, while Six Paths power is superior to Bijou chakra and senjutsu chakra. The gap between each energy level is huge, and the energy of a higher level has a crushing advantage over the energy of a lower level. Above chakra, senjutsu chakra, Bijou chakra, and Six Paths power, there is the power of yin and yang, which is enough to become the origin of the world. Now the mark on Sasuke's forehead contains the pure yin power. As long as this power exists, the energy in Sasuke's body can't hurt Sasuke's body in the face of such power. After all, this is the body of the yin power. Senjutsu chakra and outer path's power are nothing in front of the yin power. What we need to do now is just wait for Sasuke to adapt to the yin power in his body and wake up. Chapter 698. The Great Sun imprint on Naruto's forehead sucked in chakra, Sage Jutsu chakra, Uchiha Obito's Six-Path power, and Watergate Sage Jutsu chakra were directly absorbed by the Great Sun imprint. After absorbing a large amount of chakra, Naruto, who was lying on the ground, suddenly opened his eyes. Perhaps because he just woke up, Naruto's eyes were a bit confused, but even so, his eyes were still blooming with brilliant light at this moment. After Naruto opened his eyes, he saw Uchiha Obito sitting beside him. At this moment, Obito was sitting on the ground like a lamp that had run out of oil. His father, Watergate, was also standing beside him, looking at Uchiha Obito with tiredness and sadness in his eyes. Uchiha Obito looked at Naruto with a helpless and sad smile on the corner of his mouth, and said to Naruto, "I've been manipulated all my life. I thought I could break through Uchiha Madara's control, but in the end, I made one mistake after another. When my life was about to come to an end, I finally saw how wrong everything I did was. Being able to bring you back to life can be considered as the last thing I did for my kind self. Now that I'm at the end of my rope, I'm about to die. That's fine, at least I've made up for some of my wrongdoings." Perhaps because his life was about to come to an end, Obito was quite incoherent when he spoke, but Naruto and Watergate understood Obito's meaning clearly. Naruto and Watergate were silent. Obito's life was tragic. He was manipulated to do wrong. Even if he woke up now, a mistake is a mistake. Naruto and Watergate didn't forgive Obito on behalf of all the people who were hurt by him, so the two could only remain silent. Ha ha ha. My life, my ideals, and my love were destroyed one by one. I hope you can defeat Uchiha Madara and correct this wrong world on the right track. After all, you are different from me, your heart is more determined, and your soul is more kind. I'm counting on you." After saying the last sentence, Obito finally closed his eyes gently, and his originally weak breathing completely stopped at this moment. Obito died. It wasn't a spectacular death. He lost his life just like that. Naruto and Watergate, who were entrusted with Dreamland by Uchiha Obito, had a complicated look in their eyes at this moment. Alas, it's a pity, Watergate looked at Uchiha Obito's body, and his heart was quite complicated. After all, Uchiha Obito's tragic life is actually related to him. If Obito didn't become his disciple, didn't participate in the Third Shinobi World War with him, and didn't carry out such a dangerous mission, surely Uchiha Obito's life would be happier, right? As Watergate's child, Naruto was very keenly aware of the sadness in his father's eyes. Naruto stood up directly with his hand on the ground, walked to his father's side and put his hand on his father's shoulder. Although he didn't say a word, he still looked at his father with his eyes. "Don't worry, I'm fine. It's just that seeing Obito ushering in the end of his life, my heart is still a bit sad." Watergate saw that Naruto was so worried about him, and slowly shook his head, as if to remove all the emotions in his mind that may affect him, and then said to Naruto, "Now is not the time to be sentimental, we still have a strong enemy to face, Dad is still very clear about this." With that said, Watergate's line of sight seemed to have missed countless obstacles, and directly looked at Uchiha Madara standing under the stem of the sacred tree. Watergate was also very curious about why Uchiha Madara and Uchiha Obito stole the Jubi chakra, and why he and Obito spent a lot of time to save Naruto. During this period of time, Uchiha Madara had countless opportunities to attack Kuroto and Obito, but Uchiha Madara seemed to have turned a blind eye to it and watched Kuroto and Obito save Naruto. "Let's fight side by side. Dad." Looking at Watergate beside him, Naruto's mouth hung a confident smile. Naruto's confidence also affected Watergate. Naruto was on the verge of death just now, but at this moment, his strong confidence caught Watergate off guard. Perhaps aware of the doubts in Watergate's heart, Naruto directly activated the Great Sun Mark in his body, and a large number of chakra rushed out of the Great Sun Mark and directly covered Naruto's body. This is the power of 6 paths? Standing beside Naruto, Watergate felt a powerful aura from Naruto's body. Watergate also felt the same aura from Uchiha Madara and Uchiha Obito. This kind of power beyond the level of human life belongs to the Sage of 6 Paths, the power of 6 paths. The power of 6 paths covered Naruto's body, forming a golden coat and a black lining. Magatama decorations and ring-shaped patterns appeared on Naruto's body. Behind Naruto, 9 truth-seeking balls also appeared. Opening his hands, the power of 6 paths instantly condensed into 2 black iron rods, which Naruto held in his hands. However, compared to Uchiha Madara and Uchiha Obito, the power of 6 paths coming from Naruto's body was more warm and solemn, just like the Great Sun Mark on Naruto's forehead. Sure enough, the Great Sun Mark that suddenly appeared on Naruto's forehead has a powerful effect. But now is not the time to care about these things. Naruto's powerful strength added a heavy weight to the balance of defeating Uchiha Madara. At the place where Nangongja just fell, a figure suddenly appeared there. Looking at Nangongja's miserable posture under layers of vines, Uchiha Sasuke's heart sank. In Sasuke's heart, the most important people were his teammates, his parents, his brother, and Nangongja, who preached to him. And now, Nangongja was lying on the ground with injuries all over his body not far away from him. Chapter 699. Sasuke looked at Nangongja, who was trapped in the vines, and gently waved his left hand. A few kenjutsu that couldn't appear in Sasuke's hand directly split from Sasuke's left hand. The sharp kenjutsu immediately cut off all the vines wrapped around Nangongja. Sasuke jumped directly to Nangongja's side. The vines, which were still spreading, seemed to have met their natural enemy at this moment. They didn't dare to approach Uchiha Sasuke at all. Sasuke bent his knees slightly and half-knelt beside Nangongja, who was also kneeling on the ground motionlessly. He put his hand on Nangongja's shoulder, and a large amount of life energy was directly injected into Nangongja's body by Sasuke. The pure life energy wouldn't be unable to exert its power just because Nangongja cultivated internal strength. When it entered Nangongja's body, the life energy directly began to repair Nangongja's internal and external injuries. The large and small wounds were directly healed by the life energy, and Nangongja also slowly opened his closed eyes. Nangongja seemed to be aware that there was someone beside him, but this person wasn't hostile to him, so he also turned his head to see who was beside him. Sasuke, you. In a blink of an eye, Nangongja naturally saw Sasuke beside him. Nangongja just saw with his own eyes that Sasuke was severely injured by Uchiha Madara and then rescued by Orochimaru with his summon beast. But after fighting with Uchiha Madara, Nangongja also knew how difficult it was to deal with Uchiha Madara's power. Even if Orochimaru and Tsunade joined forces, they might not be able to cure Sasuke so quickly. And it was obvious that Uchiha Sasuke, who was beside him, saved him from a coma. How did Sasuke get the ability to save him, who was not a ninja? Nangongja had a lot of doubts in his heart, but Nangongja was very clear that now was not the time to answer his doubts. After all, the battle is not over yet, and the Jubi is still standing on the battlefield. Instead of getting entangled in such a trivial matter, he should continue to fight with Uchiha Madara. Nangong-sensei, I don't know what happened to me, but when I was in a coma, I seem to have met the legendary ninja ancestor of the 6 paths with Naruto, and we got the power to fight Uchiha Madara and the Jubi from him. Although Nangongja didn't ask much, Sasuke still explained the changes in his body to Nangongja. This was not only to let Nangongja understand what happened to him, but also to stabilize his heart. After all, he suddenly got unimaginable power from a mythical character. Even with Sasuke's calmness, he also needed to say these things from his own mouth and let someone support him. Coincidentally, for Sasuke, Nangongja was such a person. Sasuke's words also directly shocked Nangongja. Nangongja had also read about the hidden history of the ninja world from the collection of the Bloodcloak Pavilion. Before the outbreak of the Fourth Ninja World War, Nangongja had been reading such ancient books as anecdotes to pass the time. But when the Fourth Ninja World War really broke out, Nangongja found that most of the things recorded in these ancient books were actually true. And when Sasuke said that he actually met the 6 Paths Sensei, Nangongja didn't think that Sasuke was lying. After all, Sasuke had no need to lie to him. 6 Paths Sensei. Sure enough, such a person really existed in the ninja world. Sasuke, I understand that suddenly gaining great power will indeed make people feel very uneasy, but since this power is in your hands, it is naturally a weapon in your hands. After all, a weapon is just a weapon. Only a person who can master a weapon can bring value to this weapon. I believe that Sasuke, your tenacious heart will definitely become an important support to master this powerful weapon. Sasuke grew up under the guidance of Nangongja since he was a child. In fact, Nangongja was very clear about what kind of person Sasuke was. Proud, independent, and strong, but in addition, Sasuke was also a person who was eager to be recognized by others. Although he didn't know what kind of power Sasuke obtained from the 6 Paths Sensei, it was certain that such a powerful force did indeed make Sasuke feel great pressure. The reason why Sasuke said such words to himself was that he was eager to get Nangongja's recognition and encouragement. No one knows a son better than a father, but as a teacher, he also knows his students. Although Nangongja's words sounded quite empty, it also made Sasuke's heart feel a little peaceful. Sasuke had almost complete trust in Nangongja, his teacher. After being comforted by Nangongja, Sasuke also felt more at ease. Pressing his hand on the ground, Nangongja wanted to stand up from his kneeling position, but because his body had just recovered, he was still a little weak. So when Nangongja tried to stand up, he directly sat on the ground. Sasuke went to Nangongja's side and held Nangongja's arm. Just like when he and Nangongja fought, Nangongja helped him up. Nangongja looked at Sasuke. If it was someone else, Nangongja would have directly shaken off the other person's hand and stood up by himself. But watching Sasuke help him up, Nangongja, who was only in his 30s this year, felt a little old in his heart. Talented people come out in every generation, and the new generation replaces the old. Although he was in his prime, Nangongja was still very keen to notice from Sasuke that Sasuke had steadily caught up with him, and even surpassed him in some aspects. When Nangongja was helped up, Sasuke's eyes were also exposed to Nangongja's sight. Sasuke's right eye didn't change. It was still in the style of eternal Manjikyu Sharingan. But in Sasuke's left eye, there was a 6-tomo Rinnegan. This strange and mysterious style made Nangongja a little dazed. Is this the power Sasuke obtained from Rikudo Sennin? Looking up at the bloody red moon hanging high in the sky, Nangongja suddenly had a strong confidence in defeating Uchiha Madara. Chapter 700. Uchiha Sasuke's eyes condensed a large amount of eye power, and the purple chakra directly wrapped Nangongja and Sasuke in it. Susanoo was formed instantly, and Nangongja and Sasuke became the core of Susanoo at the same time. At this moment, Susanoo and Sasuke's previous heavy Crow Tengu armor became even more exaggerated. It was no longer an armor in the conventional sense. Instead, it was a bit exaggerated and almost decorative armor. If you have to add a name to Uchiha Sasuke's current Susanoo, perhaps the name, Susanoo Ultimate Body, would be more appropriate, right? Uchiha Sasuke controlled Susanoo to fly directly. At this moment, Susanoo no longer had huge wings behind it, but directly floated in the air like a god. The huge Susanoo was directly controlled by Sasuke to fly toward the center of the battlefield. Susanoo's huge body was so conspicuous that Naruto and Watergate naturally also discovered such an existence. It's Sasuke. When Naruto saw the huge figure of Susanoo from a distance, he immediately felt the aura of the same origin as his own power from it. There was only one person with such an aura, and that was Uchiha Sasuke, who saw Rikudo Sennin with him. After hearing Naruto's words, Namake's Minato also closed his eyes and felt the position of the flying thunder god kunai he had scattered on the battlefield. After confirming his space coordinates near the ten-tailed god tree, Watergate directly put his hand on Naruto's shoulder and said to Naruto, "Naruto, get ready. I'll take you to the ten-tailed god tree for the final battle with Uchiha Madara." Hearing Watergate's words, Naruto also nodded to his father and said, "Okay, Dad, let's go." Hearing Naruto's words, Watergate also directly urged the chakra in his body to cast his signature ninjutsu, Flying Thunder God Jutsu. In the blink of an eye, Naruto and Minato's figures appeared next to the ten-tailed heavenly tree. However, after all, Minato was now relying on his Hiraishin kunai, which was originally left in the battlefield, to locate it, so it was slightly offset. However, this offset also provided some time for Sasuke, Naruto, Watergate, and Nangongja to converge. After arriving at the foot of the ten-tailed god tree, Watergate also began to condense Senjutsu chakra in his body again to let himself enter Sage mode. After arriving at the foot of the ten-tailed god tree, Watergate also began to condense Senjutsu chakra in his body again, and entered Sage mode. For Uchiha Madara, who is in 6-path mode, only Senjutsu chakra or 6-path power or more advanced energy can cause enough damage to him. Watergate now hopes to increase his strength as much as possible so that they can have a certain advantage in the battle against Uchiha Madara. After all, just from the aura emanating from Naruto's body, he can feel that Naruto is very strong at the moment. As a father, he can't be too much worse than his son, right? Orange eyeshadow and golden pupils directly appeared on Watergate's cheeks, and Senjutsu chakra also condensed in Watergate's body. Feeling that the Senjutsu chakra in his body has stabilized, Watergate also directly exchanged a look with Naruto and rushed toward the place where Uchiha Madara was standing. Almost at the same time, Nangongja and Uchiha Sasuke also approached the place where Uchiha Madara was. Naruto and Watergate, Sasuke and Nangongja, a pair of father and son, a pair of master and disciple, the peak of the old era and the peak of the new era gathered together at this moment, just to fight against Uchiha Madara together and win a future for the ninja world. Senjutsu, Futon, Rasengan. Rikudo, Futon, Rasengan. Naruto and Watergate simultaneously urged the Senjutsu Chakra and Rikudo to attack Uchiha Madara with the most proficient ninjutsu. Naruto and Watergate's hands holding the Rasengan slowly approached. Naruto's Rasengan was mixed with Rikudo, so it had a bit of chaotic gray and black color, while Watergate's Rasengan was mixed with Senjutsu Chakra and became a bit bright white. One gray and one white Rasengan slowly approached each other, as if there was an unknown force attracting each other. The two Rasengan directly separated from the hands of Naruto and Watergate, spontaneously gathered together and slowly rotated. When the two Rasengan rotated and attracted each other, a vague Tai Chi symbol directly appeared around the two Rasengan. The two Rasengan were the eye of the Yin-Yang Pisces formation, and a mysterious aura was released from the two Rasengan. Naruto and Watergate at this moment, as if their hearts were connected, directly shouted the name of the move at the same time: Rikudo, Futon, Yin-Yang Tai Chi Rasengan. Naruto and Watergate suddenly pushed their hands forward, and the Yin-Yang Tai Chi Rasengan was directly pushed out by the two of them. As the Yin-Yang Tai Chi Rasengan continued to move forward, such a move continued to grow as if it was facing the wind. When such an attack arrived in front of the ten-tailed tree and Uchiha Madara, it had turned into a huge Yin-Yang Tai Chi disc with a diameter of more than 3 meters. You didn't waste my long wait, you gave me a little surprise. Yes, from the beginning to the end, Uchiha Madara had countless opportunities to stop Naruto's resurrection and the joint attack of the two, but Uchiha Madara didn't make a move. Uchiha Madara didn't know what kind of mentality he had. Maybe he felt that after all the ninjas in the ninja world became nourishment for the ten-tailed tree, the whole world became boring, so he artificially created many variables to find some fun for himself. Uchiha Madara condensed a six-path staff in his hand. Holding the staff, Uchiha Madara's figure slowly floated up. Looking at the huge Yin-Yang Tai Chi disc coming towards him, Uchiha Madara's face was full of excitement. That's why it's a bit interesting. In front of the Yin-Yang Tai Chi disc with a diameter of more than 3 meters, Uchiha Madara's figure was small. But even with such a huge difference in size, Uchiha Madara didn't look weak at all. The fierce aura emitted from his body made people feel that for Uchiha Madara, even if the whole world was his enemy, it was just a trivial matter. And this is the case. What is the world in front of Uchiha Madara? Chapter 701. Holding the six-path monk staff in his hand, the six-path power in his body poured into the dark six-path monk staff. The six-path power with a bit of turbid color was directly attached to the six-path monk staff. Uchiha Madara's eyes narrowed slightly, and his Rinnegan stared at the huge Yin-Yang Tai Chi diagram. The energy nodes in the huge Yin-Yang Tai Chi diagram became clear in front of Uchiha Madara's Rinnegan. Now is the time. Uchiha Madara's figure suddenly moved, and directly met the huge Yin-Yang Tai Chi diagram rushing towards him. At this moment, the six-path power on the six-path monk staff became more condensed, and the turbid color became more intense. Uchiha Madara just waved the six-path monk staff in his hand and directly hit the largest and most important energy node in the Yin-Yang Tai Chi diagram that Uchiha Madara had found. At the moment of hitting the Yin-Yang Tai Chi diagram, the six-path power in the six-path monk staff directly poured into the Yin-Yang Tai Chi diagram. Although the six-path Senjutsu, wind release, Yin-Yang Tai Chi Rasengan that Watergate and Naruto use together also has the powerful six-path power, but compared to the pure six-path power used by Uchiha Madara, it is still inferior in terms of energy level. The six-path power poured into the Yin-Yang Tai Chi diagram formed by the two Rasengan, passing through the energy nodes, and directly destroying the energy nodes from big to small. The huge Yin-Yang Tai Chi diagram with a diameter of more than 3 meters directly turned into the purest natural energy and disappeared the moment it touched the six-path monk staff. Seeing that the combination ninjutsu used by the two of them was directly broken, the faces of Naruto and Watergate were extremely ugly. Although Naruto and Watergate have always been very clear that the power possessed by Uchiha Madara is not something that ordinary people can match, but the fact that their attack was directly broken made Naruto and Watergate feel a little depressed. Just after Uchiha Madara broke the attack of Naruto and Watergate at the same time, Uchiha Sasuke and Nangongja's ultimate Susanoo also quickly approached the huge ten-tailed tree. Seeing Uchiha Sasuke and Nangongja, Naruto and Watergate instantly understood that the target of Uchiha Sasuke and Nangongja was attacking the ten-tailed tree. Since Uchiha Madara is not an existence that can be taken down in a short time, it's better to eradicate the ten-tailed tree that poses the greatest threat to the ninja world. Naruto and Watergate are father and son, and the tacit understanding between the two can be said to be very deep. Without even making eye contact, Naruto and Watergate began to move at the same time. Body flicker technique. The father and son used the body flicker technique at the same time, and almost instantly, they arrived at the side of Uchiha Madara. Since Naruto and Watergate can see the target of Uchiha Sasuke and Nangongja's attack, Uchiha Madara, who has more combat experience than the two, can naturally see it. However, after being approached by Naruto and Watergate, Uchiha Madara didn't retreat to protect the ten-tailed tree. Instead, he directly clenched the six-path staff in his hand, opened his mouth, and directly shot out a purple light beam from Uchiha Madara's mouth. Six-path Senjutsu, Mist Release Light Fang. Compared to the six-path Senjutsu that Naruto and Watergate used together just now, Uchiha Madara's six-path Senjutsu is undoubtedly more destructive and more powerful. And the first target of such six-path Senjutsu is naturally Naruto, who also has six-path Senjutsu and can pose a threat to him. When Naruto saw that he was being attacked, he immediately raised the truth-seeking orb in his hand, hoping to neutralize the attack with the power of the truth-seeking orb. But obviously, in the face of such a high-speed compressed six-path Senjutsu, the neutralization effect of the truth-seeking orb is not enough. The sharp light beam directly cut the truth-seeking orb in half, and Naruto also adjusted his body to avoid being directly cut by such a powerful ninjutsu. Uchiha Madara's attack didn't stop because Naruto dodged. Instead, he twisted his head and directly changed the target of the Mist Release Light Fang to Watergate. Watergate saw that Uchiha Madara actually attacked him and directly grabbed a trident Flying Thunder God Kunai in his hand. Seeing that Watergate suddenly grabbed a Flying Thunder God Kunai in his hand, whether it was Naruto or Uchiha Madara, they both thought that Watergate would use his signature space ninjutsu, Flying Thunder God Kunai, to teleport himself to another place to avoid Uchiha Madara's attack. Both of them stared at the Flying Thunder God Kunai in Watergate's hand, but Watergate's hand that was holding the Flying Thunder God Kunai suddenly loosened, letting the kunai fall directly to the ground. Although they didn't know whether Watergate's action of dropping the Flying Thunder God Kunai was intentional or unintentional, but for Uchiha Madara, it was a good situation. In the face of his attack, and the Flying Thunder God Kunai was not in a safe range to avoid his attack, this situation left Watergate with only two choices: either directly resist his attack or directly use the Flying Thunder God Kunai to move to a position away from the center of the battlefield. And with Uchiha Madara's understanding of Watergate, Watergate is likely to choose to teleport to other places to preserve his strength, but once Watergate leaves, Uchiha Madara can directly destroy the Flying Thunder God Kunai, so that Watergate has no way to reach the battlefield in a short time, and during this time, he can directly take down Uzumaki Naruto. The purple beam condensed by Mist Release Light Fang was getting closer and closer to Watergate's body, and Naruto at this moment was also trying his best to rush to Watergate's side to help Watergate block this powerful ninjutsu that he couldn't completely resist. However, everything seemed to be too late. Even if Naruto used his fastest speed, he still couldn't catch up with the speed of the Mist Release Light Fang attack towards Watergate. Seeing that the Mist Release Light Fang was about to hit him, Watergate's figure suddenly turned into a light and disappeared. Sure enough. Seeing Watergate's figure disappear, Uchiha Madara's eyes also showed a look of understanding. Sure enough, Watergate still chose to preserve his strength. He directly closed his mouth, and the Mist Release Light Fang disappeared directly because of Uchiha Madara's closing mouth. Mist Release Light Fang was an ability that was shot out by condensing the pure power of the 6 paths. For Uchiha Madara, using it was quite stressful, so after seeing that Watergate was forced back by himself, Uchiha Madara also stopped using this high-consumption ninjutsu. Chapter 702. When Uchiha Madara was about to directly use the body flicker technique to directly destroy the Flying Thunder God Kunai, Watergate's figure suddenly appeared in the place where the Flying Thunder God Kunai was. This is impossible. Seeing Watergate's figure suddenly appear, Uchiha Madara's eyes flashed with a trace of surprise. After all, the time difference was completely different from what he expected. In fact, using the Flying Thunder God Jutsu requires a certain amount of charging time. The farther the distance, the longer the charging time. According to Uchiha Madara's estimation, even if Watergate moved his figure to the nearest coordinates of the Flying Thunder God Kunai, it wouldn't be so fast for him to use the Flying Thunder God Jutsu again. But now, Watergate almost immediately appeared in the place where he used the Flying Thunder God Jutsu after dodging his Mist Release Light Fang. Even Uchiha Madara couldn't understand this situation. Compared to the astonishment in Uchiha Madara's eyes, Watergate's eyes were full of joy. When he was trapped in the Kamui space, Namikaze Minato tried countless times to escape from the Kamui space. And during this period of time, Namikaze Minato was able to feel the mysteries of space in the Kamui space, which was originally a different space. Although it seemed that Watergate used the Flying Thunder God Jutsu to move his body to another place, but the place where Watergate moved his body was not any place in the ninja world, but in the crevice of space. Such a crevice contains countless dangers, but with Watergate's understanding of space, he can still make himself stay for a while. Watergate knew very well that whether he used the Mist Release Light Fang or the Flying Thunder God Jutsu to leave Naruto's side, it would be harmful to him. So Watergate also made up his mind to directly use such a ninjutsu that he wasn't sure whether he could successfully use or not. As it turned out, such a Flying Thunder God Jutsu was quite effective. Watergate also relied on such an unexpected application to directly avoid Uchiha Madara's attack. Just when Madara didn't know what was going on, Nangongja and Uchiha Sasuke Susanoo quickly approached the tall stem of the Ten-Tails God Tree. Susanoo Raiton, Chidori Sharp Spear. Sasuke and Ultimate Susanoo made hand seals together, and the huge Raiton chakra condensed directly in Susanoo's hand, and the shining lightning turned into a long sword that was directly grabbed by Susanoo's hand. Seeing that everything was ready, Uchiha Sasuke also nodded to Nangongja and said, "Nangong, sensei, sorry to trouble you." Hearing Sasuke's voice, Nangongja also nodded directly, exchanged positions with Sasuke, and directly took control of Susanoo. At this moment, Susanoo has become a mode that is controlled by Nangongja, and Uchiha Madara provides energy. Sword. Nangongja opened his mouth, and a short voice directly resounded through the world like an edict. The lightning blade in Susanoo's hand slowly turned into the shape of a long sword, and Nangongja's kenki and internal strength gushed out, directly wrapping the lightning sword in it. With lightning as the foundation, internal strength as the skeleton, and kenki as the blade, such a fierce long sword was directly held in Susanoo's hand. Activate. Nangongja saw the formation of the long sword, and once again issued an edict, and the long sword in Susanoo's hand immediately shot out kenki. The kenki didn't condense into the shape of a long dragon by Nangongja, but instead, it directly lingered around Susanoo's Ultimate Susanoo. Nangongja seemed to feel that the preparation was almost done, so he directly controlled Susanoo to rush in the direction of the Ten-Tails God Tree. Lifting the long sword in his hand slightly, Nangongja directly controlled Susanoo to slash at the stem of the Ten-Tails God Tree. After this slash, the kenki that was originally lingering around Susanoo directly slashed in the direction of the long sword. The body of the Ten-Tails is naturally very tough, but in the face of the kenki and all kinds of powerful energy directly condensed into a long sword attack, it was still inferior. When Susanoo's sword chopped down, the huge flower stem was directly cut in half, and the whole flower stem of the ten-tailed sacred tree was directly suspended in the air, and even the Rinnegan imprint projected on the moon appeared to be in a trance. You really bring me more and more surprises. Looking at Susanu's successful slash, Uchiha Madara's eyes were full of excitement. After completely summoning the ten tails and using the infinite Tsukuyomi, Uchiha Madara's heart was very empty. As a warrior, he simply can't accept that he will never have a chance to fight again. So in order to relieve his boredom and find some fun, Uchiha Madara also deliberately connived with Naruto, Sasuke, Watergate, and Nangongja. And now, whether it is Watergate or Sasuke, they have brought great surprises to Uchiha Madara. That's how he can relieve his boredom. That's it. That's it. That's how it should be. The more Uchiha Madara said, the more excited he became, and the momentum from Uchiha Madara's body became more and more turbulent. The power of six paths continued to emerge from Uchiha Madara's body, and the place where Uchiha Madara stood also directly replenished the power of six paths. The huge gap that Nangongja and Sasuke had just cut was directly restored under the huge power of six paths. Understanding that the root of everything is Uchiha Madara, Nangongja and Sasuke also directly controlled Susanoo to join Naruto and Watergate. Releasing Susanoo directly, Nangongja, Watergate, Naruto, and Sasuke stood directly together. A pair of father and son, a pair of master and disciple who are not father and son but have a father-son relationship. Four people stood here together to fight against the most powerful enemy in the ninja world. Sword energy, Senjutsu chakra, power of six paths, and six Tomo Rinnegan, several peak powers gathered here. At this moment, there was no impassioned declaration, nor was there a magnificent victory. At this moment, there were only 5 hearts burning with fighting spirit on this battlefield. Chapter 703. Although there was no verbal communication between the four of them, they were very familiar with each other's fighting style and personal strengths. Therefore, Nangongja and Uchiha Sasuke immediately rushed towards Uchiha Madara as the vanguard. Sasuke held the broken sword in his hand, and Raitun chakra instantly condensed into a solid form to repair the missing blade. The 6 paths of Yin and chakra in his body surged, and the chakra broke out of his body and directly lingered on the long sword. This kind of performance was almost the same as Nangongja's Kenki. Nangongja looked at Sasuke using a move that was similar to Kenki. Although his eyes were a little shocked, they were full of surprise. After all, the stronger Sasuke was at the moment, the more likely he was to defeat Uchiha Madara. Nangongja stimulated the internal strength and sword energy in his body. Compared to Uchiha Sasuke's half-baked sword energy, Nangongja's pure sword energy was undoubtedly more aggressive. The slightly transparent Kenki not only wrapped around Nangongja's sword like Uchiha Sasuke, but also directly lingered around Nangongja's body. As the Kenki continued to hover around Nangongja's long sword and body, the Kenki also became more and more vivid. The Kenki, which was almost shuttle-shaped, constantly elongated and changed shape. A small but very delicate Kenki dragon directly lingered around Nangongja's body and sword. Sasuke, get ready. You haven't forgotten what I taught you, right? Nangongja smiled and glanced at Sasuke, who was next to him with a serious face. When fighting, you have to tense your nerves, but you must also relax your spirit. Only a flexible spirit can allow people to face all kinds of situations. When Sasuke heard Nangongja's question, he also saw Nangongja smile. Suddenly, he also understood why Nangongja talked to him. Although the battle may bring many unpredictable consequences. But as a warrior, if you don't even enjoy the process of fighting, and only see fighting as a way to solve problems, then you will be at a disadvantage from the beginning of the battle. Nangong-sensei, I'm ready. Sasuke looked at Nangongja, and his mouth hung a bit of a smile. As a warrior, you should enjoy the process of fighting. This was a principle that Nangongja once taught to Uchiha Sasuke, but over the years, Sasuke has even forgotten such a principle because he has been carrying so many burdens on his body. Now, fighting with Nangongzhi again reminded Sasuke of Nangongzhi's teachings, and his originally nervous mood slowly calmed down at this moment. Nangongzhi and Sasuke's charging speed was very fast, and almost instantly, they were close to Uchiha Madara's location. The two tacitly attacked Uchiha Madara from the left and right. Nangongzhi attacked from the top, and Sasuke attacked from the bottom. Nangongzhi attacked from the right, and Sasuke attacked from the bottom. The two people's very similar sword path also complemented each other's attacks, and the almost perfect cooperation was directly displayed by Nangongzhi and Sasuke. Although one person's strength can defeat 10 people, if there is 100 or 1,000 people, more strength is needed to play a role. Because Nangongzhi and Sasuke directly cut a huge gap in Jubi's flower stem, Uchiha Madara at this moment had to use his own strength to supply Jubi's consumption, so his strength was suppressed to a certain extent. Nangongzhi and Sasuke at this moment almost exerted their own sword moves and their own strength to the extreme. Even Uchiha Madara felt a bit flustered. In 6 paths mode, Uchiha Madara can cast a lot of powerful ninjutsu. However, any ninjutsu needs a certain amount of time to gather power, and Nangongzhi and Sasuke didn't give Uchiha Madara such an opportunity. With their powerful sword arts, they directly forced Uchiha Madara to passively rely on taijutsu to fight with them. However, 6 paths mode also brought Uchiha Madara extremely strong physical fitness and recovery ability. Nangongzhi and Sasuke joined forces to fight against Uchiha Madara, and caused some damage to Uchiha Madara, but their own bodies also suffered some damage. However, Uchiha Madara's injuries were constantly recovering in a way beyond common sense because of the powerful life energy in his body. On the other hand, Nangongzhi and Sasuke's injuries were accumulating more and more. In fact, Nangongzhi and Sasuke couldn't maintain such a situation that was close to suppression for long. At this moment, Uzumaki Naruto and Minato Watergate also took advantage of the precious time that Nangongzhi and Sasuke won to prepare their own actions. At this moment, Naruto and Watergate were in Sage mode at the same time. As the Sage mode of Mount Myaboku's inheritance, whether it was Naruto or Watergate, at this moment, both of them condensed the Senjutsu chakra in their bodies in their hands, and Naruto condensed a large amount of 6 paths power in his hands to enhance his attack power. Minato directly threw out the Flying Thunder God Kunai in his hand, and his figure also directly disappeared from where he was. Flying Thunder God, second stage. As soon as the Flying Thunder God Kunai approached the place where Uchiha Madara was, Watergate's figure directly appeared beside Uchiha Madara. The fist condensed with a large amount of Senjutsu chakra directly bombarded Uchiha Madara's body. Uchiha Madara was already suppressed by Nangongzhi and Sasuke. Looking at Watergate's fist condensed with a large amount of Senjutsu chakra, Uchiha Madara's eyes flashed with a dignified look. However, Uchiha Madara wasn't an indecisive person. After discovering that he couldn't take Watergate's attack head-on, Uchiha Madara immediately stimulated a large amount of 6 paths power in his body. His left arm and the 6-path monk staff in his right hand were now full of 6 paths power. At this moment, Nangongzhi and Sasuke's attacks also arrived. Uchiha Madara directly blocked Nangongzhi's Sword of Catastrophe with his 6-path monk staff, and blocked Uchiha Sasuke's attack with his left hand. Whether it was the sword chi lingering on Nangongzhi's Sword of Catastrophe or the 6 paths power contained in Sasuke's attack, they weren't easy to block. These two powerful energies almost invaded Uchiha Madara's body in an instant when they came into contact with Uchiha Madara's body, rapidly destroying Uchiha Madara's body. Chapter 704. Just when Watergate's punch was about to hit Uchiha Madara's body, Uchiha Madara borrowed the strength of Nangongzhi and Sasuke's slash, and with his own strength, he quickly retreated. Watergate's punch barely scratched the corner of Uchiha Madara's clothes. Uchiha Madara's body just stabilized, and he wanted to see what the closest to him, Nangongjia, Sasuke, and Watergate had. But suddenly, Uchiha Madara found that although Watergate was standing in the same place, there was a strong chakra fluctuation in his body. Flying Thunder God Mutual Teleportation Technique. The Flying Thunder God Jutsu's advanced ninjutsu, the Flying Thunder God Jutsu, was directly used by Minato. Originally, the Flying Thunder God Jutsu required two people who could use the Flying Thunder God Jutsu at the same time to use such a ninjutsu and exchange their positions. But because he was in Sage mode, and Watergate had been constantly studying the Flying Thunder God technique and the mysteries of space over the years, at this moment, after Watergate used the Flying Thunder God Mutual Teleportation technique, a golden figure suddenly appeared in front of Uchiha Madara's divine weapon. Wearing the clothes condensed by the power of the six paths, and with the truth-seeking ball floating behind him, Naruto directly appeared beside Uchiha Madara. The truth-seeking ball floating behind Naruto directly split into several small truth-seeking balls about the size of a thumb. The small truth-seeking balls surrounded Naruto's powerful fist that condensed the power of the six paths, Senjutsu Chakra, and Bija Chakra. That's right, Watergate's attack was just a purposeful feint. If such an attack could hit Uchiha Madara, it would naturally be a good thing, but Watergate had long been prepared for Uchiha Madara to dodge in various ways. But after Watergate fully broke out with his speed, Watergate was still confident that he could touch Uchiha Madara's body. Once he could touch Uchiha Madara's body, Watergate could leave part of his chakra on Uchiha Madara's body, and use this chakra as a spatial coordinate to directly transfer Naruto to Uchiha Madara's side using the Flying Thunder God Mutual Teleportation technique. Nangongjia, Sasuke, Watergate, and Naruto. Among the four of them, Naruto, who had the Jubi chakra, Six Paths mode, and Sage mode, was the one who could really decide the outcome of the battle. But the more trump card he had, the more he couldn't take it out too early, and he had to do everything he could to hide such a trump card. At the very beginning, Nangongjia and Sasuke directly stepped forward to fight Uchiha Madara, making Uchiha Madara think that the strongest attack on him was either Watergate or Naruto. Then Naruto and Watergate used almost the same move to attack Uchiha Madara. Because Watergate had the Flying Thunder God Jutsu, his mobility and flexibility were far beyond Naruto's existence. Watergate's attack directly made Uchiha Madara put all his focus on fighting against Nangongjia, Sasuke, and Watergate, and subconsciously ignored the existence of Uzumaki Naruto. After Watergate's chakra was left on Uchiha Madara's body, Watergate immediately began to prepare for Uzumaki Naruto to approach Uchiha Madara's side. This plan actually had many loopholes. What if Uchiha Madara had already understood the threat of Naruto from the very beginning? What if Watergate couldn't leave a mark on Uchiha Madara's body in the fight between the three? What if Naruto approached Uchiha Madara, and Uchiha Madara had already made a judgment and took countermeasures? Although there were all kinds of loopholes in such a battle plan, but such a battle plan, after all, was only urgently thought of by Nangongjia and Watergate. If it worked, that would be the best, but if it didn't work, then after Uchiha Madara's vigilance increased, the only way left for everyone was to fight to the death. But from the current situation, the battle plan of Nangongjia and Watergate was relatively successful. Uzumaki Naruto's fist, which had been charging for a long time, immediately blasted out after approaching Uchiha Madara. It contained the power of the six paths. The Tailed Beast Chakra and the Senjutsu Chakra, along with the help of the Truth-Seeking Ball, directly bombarded Uchiha Madara's body. At this moment, Uchiha Madara's mind was also quickly thinking about how to avoid Uzumaki Naruto's decisive blow. Fly? No. Uzumaki Naruto was also in the Six Paths mode, and he also had the ability to fly. Once he was in the air, his speed would be significantly reduced, simply turning himself into a moving target. Retreat? No. Once he was ready to use the body flicker technique, he would give Uzumaki Naruto an opportunity. Moreover, it would be easy for Uzumaki Naruto to use the body flicker technique with the help of the ten-tailed chakra in his body, so he would still be hit. Wait, hit? Uchiha Madara looked at Uzumaki Naruto's fist that was condensing a lot of energy, and a flash of light suddenly appeared in Uchiha Madara's eyes. Why do I have to dodge Uzumaki Naruto's attack? Compared to Uzumaki Naruto, he has the complete ten-tailed beast and the six paths mode in his body. Whether it is physical fitness or energy level, he is sure to win against Uzumaki Naruto. Among the 4 people fighting with him, it is obvious that Uzumaki Naruto is the most important trump card. Even if he suffers a little injury, he can recover in a short time with the help of the ten-tailed beast. And once the 4 people fighting with him lose their trump card, Uzumaki Naruto, what means can they use to threaten him? After thinking about this, Uchiha Madara made up his mind. Exchanging injury for death, this method is actually an extremely effective counterattack that everyone deliberately avoids. I want to see if there is anyone here who can stop me after I directly eliminate Uzumaki Naruto. The power of the 6 paths and the ten-tailed chakra were also condensed in large numbers in the hands of Uchiha Madara, and the truth-seeking balls directly turned into thumb-sized balls that quickly rotated around Uchiha Madara's fist. The 2 fists were about to collide. Chapter 705. Naruto and Uchiha Madara's fists didn't collide directly, but they staggered and directly attacked each other's body. Obviously, whether it was Uzumaki Naruto or Uchiha Madara, both of them have made up their minds, even if they are injured, they must let their fists fall on each other's body. For Uchiha Madara, defeating Naruto is the necessary condition for him to win the battlefield he created under his indulgence. For Naruto, Uchiha Madara is the evil person who destroyed his life. Although Uzumaki Naruto is not very satisfied with his past life, at least he doesn't hate it. It was Uchiha Madara's selfishness that caused his life to collapse, just like this battlefield, broken and desolate, every inch is full of blood and tears. Uchiha Madara. Naruto clenched his fists tightly, although he was not affected by the Bija chakra, his eyes were full of madness. Just a mere ant, just lie on the ground for me. Looking at Naruto's ferocious face, Uchiha Madara's eyes also showed a bit of disdain and madness. After all, for the current Uchiha Madara, Naruto has a certain threat. For Uchiha Madara, who has obtained the power of the 6 paths and regarded himself as the true god of the shinobi world, Uzumaki Naruto, who is beyond his control, shouldn't exist in this world at all. The reason why Naruto can live now is all because of his own grace. As a tool to relieve his boredom, he should do his duty well. Now Naruto wants to rise up and resist, and chose to fight directly with his opponent regardless of his injuries. Such behavior made Uchiha Madara's heart full of dissatisfaction. Naturally, it won't take too long for Naruto and Uchiha Madara. Both of them have the power of the 6 paths in their bodies and have entered the 6 paths mode, which is enough to be called an existence beyond the level of human beings. Such 2 people's physical fitness has naturally exceeded the scope of human beings. Whether it is Uchiha Madara or Naruto's fists, after touching each other's body, they bombarded each other one after another. Nangongja, Watergate, and Sasuke were all paying close attention to the situation in the battlefield at this moment. At the beginning, when Naruto and Uchiha Madara attacked each other, the 3 of them could still keep up with the attack speed of these 2 people, and they could accurately judge who has the advantage in each punch between Naruto and Uchiha Madara. However, as Naruto and Uchiha Madara continued to increase the power of the 6 paths in their bodies, so that their physical fitness continued to exceed the limit, Nangongja and Watergate could no longer keep up with the speed of Naruto and Uchiha Madara's attacks. Sasuke, on the other hand, could clearly see the battle between Uchiha Madara and Naruto with the power of the 6 paths, but because he could see it clearly, Uchiha Sasuke understood that this battle can only be completed by Naruto. Once he, Nangongja, or Watergate dared to join the battle at will, they will be directly torn to pieces by the powerful force. Others can't see it clearly, but Uchiha Sasuke, who has 6 Tomo Rinnegan, can clearly see that Uchiha Madara and Naruto are surrounded by the destructive power of the 6 paths and the Jubi chakra. The power of the 6 paths and the Jubi chakra are the 2 energy levels at the peak of the ninja world. If it was only one of them, maybe Nangongja can rely on his internal strength and sword chi, and Watergate can rely on the Senjutsu chakra in his body to resist. But at this moment, because of the mutual attack between Naruto and Uchiha Madara, the power of the 6 paths and the Jubi chakra seems to have been stimulated. While Naruto and Uchiha Madara were constantly attacking each other, the Jubi chakra and the power of the 6 paths also began to attack each other. The 2 energies that are far beyond ordinary attacked each other like this, and a barrier of destruction appeared around Naruto and Uchiha Madara. The destructive aura from it even made the bright moon mark hidden in Uchiha Sasuke's body tremble slightly. After discovering this situation, Sasuke immediately told his discovery to Nangongja and Watergate. Although Sasuke, Watergate, and Nangongja were full of confidence in Naruto, but after all, the existence of Uchiha Madara was too strong, which made Nangongja, Watergate, and Sasuke inevitably have some worries in their hearts. The 3 of them could only helplessly watch Naruto and Uchiha Madara attack each other like this. They watched as Naruto's chest was bombarded by Uchiha Madara's punches, and even a few dents appeared. Blood and fragments of internal organs rushed out of Naruto's mouth. Naruto has directly turned into such a miserable appearance, and as Naruto's opponent, Uchiha Madara's state at this moment naturally won't be so good. In the corner of Uchiha Madara's mouth, there was also an obvious bloodstain. Obviously, he also suffered a certain amount of damage. But physical injuries, for existences like Naruto and Uchiha Madara, are just things that can be solved by consuming a little bit of energy. What really makes the 2 of them feel the loss of their mental strength at this moment? This kind of loss can't be recovered by a simple energy replenishment. Naruto can't afford it, and Uchiha Madara can't afford it. Feeling that his spirit is getting more and more tired, and even his body is a lot heavier when he attacks, Uchiha Madara's eyes flashed with a trace of decisiveness. I can't delay any longer, I have to leave now to determine the winner, otherwise, the situation will become more and more unfavorable. It's a game, if I don't win in the end, wouldn't it be a pity? With this thought in mind, Uchiha Madara also immediately launched into action. When Naruto and Uchiha Madara punched each other, one of them was constantly bombarding each other with one fist, and both of them were holding their weapons in the other hand. But because they can't be distracted when punching each other, Naruto and Uchiha Madara didn't use the weapons in their hands. But after Uchiha Madara made up his mind to end the battle as soon as possible, Uchiha Madara also began to use the weapons in his hands. Chapter 706. Since he has decided to quickly end the battle with Uzumaki Naruto, Uchiha Madara naturally won't have the slightest hesitation. Although in the eyes of others, Uchiha Madara and Naruto's punches can't be seen clearly, but as the target of Naruto's attacks, Uchiha Madara has relied on the attacks of Naruto again and again to figure out his attacking habits. After all, ninjas are also human, and in the process of training, they will naturally form various habits. Naturally, the rhythm and routines of their attacks are also naturally traceable. Once you find the pattern, you can actually predict the landing point, speed, and strength of the opponent's attack. Uchiha Madara, as the pinnacle existence of the Warring States period, has experienced large and small battles in his life, and naturally far surpasses Uzumaki Naruto. If these battles really brought Uchiha Madara something, then the most obvious thing is that he has far more combat experience than Uzumaki Naruto. Now, Uchiha Madara has figured out Uzumaki Naruto's attack rhythm and attack pattern, which is an important guarantee for Uchiha Madara to ensure that his plan can be carried out smoothly. Watching Uzumaki Naruto's fist getting closer and closer to him, Uchiha Madara controlled his eyes so that Naruto wouldn't see a flaw in his eyes, and secretly put all his attention on Uzumaki Naruto's fist. When a person punches, there are two peaks of strength, the moment of the punch and the moment when the fist comes into contact with the enemy. When the punch is strong, it's to accumulate enough power in the fist, and when the fist comes into contact with the opponent, it's because the accumulated power burst out in an instant. However, it was impossible for a human to maintain stability like a machine when exerting force. When the fist was swung out but before it could reach the opponent, it was actually an awkward break in the middle of the exertion of force, where the forward force had already been exhausted and the backward force had yet to arrive. Now is the time. Uchiha Madara's mind has been lingering on Uzumaki Naruto's fist. Uchiha Madara is waiting for the most vulnerable gap in Uzumaki Naruto's fist. Only by grasping this gap can he get the greatest result with the least damage. Habit, angle, strength, timing, a subtle calculation in Uchiha Madara's mind. To be honest, Uchiha Madara's heart not only has the desire to defeat Naruto and win, but also has an indelible joy. He wholeheartedly devoted himself to the battle, and let himself enjoy the feeling of the blood gushing out of his body. This feeling is something that Uchiha Madara hasn't experienced for a long time. When Uchiha Madara left all his plans behind, his heart gained a little freedom, and it was precisely because of this that he had such a hearty battle. After receiving Uzumaki Naruto's attack, Uchiha Madara took advantage of Naruto's surprise and immediately loosened his fist and held it directly on the Rikudo's staff. The six-path monk's staff was directly held by Uchiha Madara with both hands, and directly smashed toward Naruto's body. Uchiha Madara's risky move was beyond everyone's expectations, and Naruto also directly fell into a dangerous situation. But everything has two sides. Although Uchiha Madara's sudden attack on Naruto posed a great threat to Naruto's life, it also directly obliterated the death zone created by the mutual attack of the Six Paths power and the Jubi's chakra when Naruto and Uchiha Madara's fist collided with each other. Seeing the barrier disappear, Uchiha Sasuke didn't even talk to Nangongja and Watergate. He directly activated the Six-Path power in his body and the Six-Tomo Rinnegan in his left eye, and directly displayed the special ability that he awakened after obtaining the Six-Tomo Rinnegan, Heavenly Hand Power. Heavenly Hand Power was a special power that Uchiha Sasuke obtained after awakening the Six-Tomo Rinnegan. He could exchange himself with the object seen by that eye in an instant. The object of the exchange could be a human, or an object, such as a knife. At this moment, Uchiha Sasuke used such a special ability to directly exchange his position with Naruto, who was about to be hit by Six-Path Monk's staff. Uchiha Madara and Naruto's punch just now consumed a lot of energy, but Sasuke has been preparing to launch an attack. Uchiha Sasuke directly replaced Naruto's position and fought against Uchiha Madara with his special ability that he had never shown before. Although Uchiha Sasuke didn't directly gather the Jubi chakra and enter the six-path mode like Naruto after obtaining the six-path power, he also obtained a lot of powerful abilities. After completely absorbing the Geto power and Senjutsu chakra left in his body in the previous battle, Sasuke's own physical fitness has also improved greatly. Perhaps when he fought against Uchiha Madara with Nangongja, he didn't see it so clearly. Now, Uchiha Sasuke's own strength was completely displayed. Sasuke was very clear that if he only relied on his physical fitness to fight against Uchiha Madara, then he would be the one at a disadvantage. Since there was no way to gain an advantage in pure strength, then he must use a lot of skills to fight against Uchiha Madara. Sasuke lifted the silver sword in his hand, and his hand that was tightly holding the hilt relaxed a little. With a little force, the silver sword in Uchiha Sasuke's hand began to tremble at a mysterious frequency at this moment. Unloading technique. As Uchiha Sasuke's sensei, Nangongja looked at the skills in Sasuke's hands and naturally immediately understood what kind of skills Sasuke used. But such a skill requires delicate control of one's own body and a detailed analysis of the enemy's attack pattern. Nangongja has always been using kenjutsu to suppress others. It's not that Nangongja didn't know such skills, but because it was inconsistent with his usual sword path and sword habits, Nangongzhi didn't know much about such skills. He didn't expect that such a skill could be directly displayed by Uchiha Sasuke. Seeing such a skill in Sasuke's hands, Nangongzhi's heart was filled with a kind of emotion. That immature child has now surpassed me? It's just that Sasuke couldn't hear Nangongzhi's feelings now, otherwise, Sasuke would be very happy. Chapter 707. After using the unloading technique, Sasuke didn't hesitate and directly used the long sword in his hand to meet Uchiha Madara's Rikudo staff. The most important reason why unloading technique is called unloading technique is that it weakens the attack power of the opponent's weapon by vibrating the long sword. And in the process of borrowing force, he uses the stacked strength of the long sword to attack the enemy. In the moment of contact with Uchiha Madara's Rikudo staff, Uchiha Sasuke immediately felt a huge force invading his body. Sure enough, he underestimated the power of Uchiha Madara. The use of unloading technique itself requires the user to perfectly calculate the enemy's strength, speed, and other factors that can affect the attack. If there was a miscalculation in any of these factors, it would directly lead to the failure of the force-shedding technique and put the user in danger. At this moment, Sasuke made some small mistakes. Through the observation of the battle between Uchiha Madara and Naruto just now, Uchiha Madara thought that he had understood a lot about Uchiha Madara's physical fitness and skill level, but now it seems that he still underestimated Uchiha Madara. Under such a desperate blow, there was a certain error in his estimation. Fortunately, although there was a certain error, it was still within a controllable range. Sasuke tried his best to increase his speed again so that his shedding technique could exert enough power. The long sword collided with the Rikudo staff in Uchiha Madara's hand again and again, and in the process of borrowing force, the power contained in the Rikudo staff in Uchiha Madara's hand was also weakened rapidly. When Sasuke entangled Uchiha Madara, in addition to Naruto, who was exhausted, Watergate and Nangongzhi also immediately joined forces to attack Uchiha Madara. Sasuke, Watergate, and Nangongzhi, the three people joined forces to besiege Uchiha Madara. As the saying goes, 2 fists are no match for 4 hands. When Watergate, Sasuke, and Nangongzhi cooperated to besiege Uchiha Madara also felt a bit helpless. Being entangled like this, Uchiha Madara's eyes inevitably showed a trace of anger. Raising the power in his body, Uchiha Madara injected a large amount of Six Paths power into the Six Path Monk staff in his hand. With a sweep of Six Path Monk staff, Sasuke, Watergate, and Nangongzhi were forced to retreat. Uchiha Madara directly jumped a few times to open up the distance between Nangongzhi and the other two. At this moment, Uchiha Madara's condition was not good. Uchiha Madara's chest was slightly sunken at the moment, and a few blood traces left bright red marks on the corners of Uchiha Madara's mouth. Under the siege of Nangongzhi, Watergate, and Sasuke, Uchiha Madara's body also suffered a certain amount of damage, but there was no way for him to recover quickly by relying on his own recovery ability. After a little inspection of his injuries, Uchiha Madara also began to mobilize the Jubi chakra and Six Paths power in his body to repair his body. Because the injury is relatively serious, Uchiha Madara mobilized Six Paths power and Jubi chakra at the moment. And because of the sweep of Uchiha Madara, Watergate, Nangongzhi, and Uchiha Sasuke's body were also invaded by Six Paths power. They needed some time to adjust, so Uchiha Madara and Nangongzhi directly confronted each other. A large amount of Six Paths power and Jubi chakra emerged directly from Uchiha Madara's body, but when Uchiha Madara didn't notice, a black unknown substance between energy and substance directly invaded Uchiha Madara's body at this moment. After the black substance came into contact with Uchiha Madara's flesh and blood, it began to proliferate, and the world began to devour Uchiha Madara's flesh and blood. In the beginning, because the black substance was too small, Uchiha Madara didn't notice that it was constantly devouring his flesh and blood, but when the black substance continued to devour his flesh and blood like a rolling snowball, Uchiha Madara finally found something strange. But at this moment, at least 1/3 of Uchiha Madara's flesh and blood has been devoured by the black substance, plus the parts that are not under his control. At least half of Uchiha Madara's body is out of his control at this moment. The black substance directly drilled out from under the skin, like a tree bud breaking through the soil, directly and quickly covered Uchiha Madara's body. When the black substance completely covered Uchiha Madara's body, it directly melted and covered Uchiha Madara's body. What's going on? Although he lost control of his body, Uchiha Madara's consciousness was still very clear. Feeling that his body was constantly losing control, Uchiha Madara's heart was also full of horror. Although Uchiha Madara was not so clear about what happened, he could recognize what the black substance covering his body was. Zetsu. You, as my will, dare to directly violate my will and attack me? Uchiha Madara's roar also reached the ears of Watergate, Naruto, Sasuke, and Nangongja. At this moment, although the four of them were not very clear about the changes that happened to Uchiha Madara, after hearing Uchiha Madara's roar, they understood that such changes were caused by Zetsu. Isn't he related to Uchiha Madara? And just now, Black Zetsu clearly died with Uchiha Obito. Why is Uchiha Madara scolding Zetsu now? Even in the face of Uchiha Madara's scolding, the black substance wrapped in Uchiha Madara's body did not have the slightest intention of refuting, it just kept invading Uchiha Madara's body and spirit. If it was Uchiha Madara who had just become the Jubi column force, naturally, he would not be so easily invaded by Black Zetsu, but at this moment, Uchiha Madara became mentally exhausted and physically weak because of the attacks of Nangongja and the other three. Such an Uchiha Madara, Black Zetsu was confident that he could take him under his control. As long as he occupied Uchiha Madara's body and used it as a shell, Black Zetsu could resurrect his mother Kagaya Otsutsuki in this world again. Chapter 708. Otsutsuki Kagaya, an existence that was completely submerged in the torrent of time. Even the existence of Hagoromo Sennin is still like a myth in the ninja world, but there is no record of Otsutsuki Kagaya, the mother of Hagoromo Sennin. The reason for that was because such an existence was simply too terrifying. In the past, the two brothers, Hagoromo and Hamura, did their best to seal Otsutsuki Kagaya's mother. After that, the two Sennin also ran out of energy and didn't extend their lifespan for long. Black Zetsu, the third son of Otsutsuki Kagaya, wanted to use various means to reunite the Jubi and resurrect his mother in the countless years after that. In the past history of the ninja world, it's not that the Rinnegan was not born under the guidance of Black Zetsu, but because the Jubi didn't gather, he couldn't resurrect Otsutsuki Kagaya. After experiencing repeated failures, Black Zetsu finally began to seriously plan a detailed and huge plan. Not only did he include a few key people in his plan, but he also wanted to pull the entire ninja world into such a plan. This layout has been extended from the first appearance of Uchiha Madara and Senju Takuma to the present for nearly 100 years. For nearly 100 years, Black Zetsu has been using all his mind to perfect and implement such a plan. A lot of time, coupled with the understanding of human beings accumulated by Black Zetsu in the past countless years, and the control of people's hearts, all of these made everything continue to develop according to the script specified by Black Zetsu. Although there are some small differences in some details, on the whole, it is still playing out according to Black Zetsu's script. Seeing Uchiha Madara directly restrained like this, Black Zetsu has already understood that his opportunity has come. Using a wisp of his own body hidden in the arm cut off from Obito, he invaded the body of the Jubi, the Geto Mazo. Because his power and the Jubi's chakra have the same root, Black Zetsu easily turned the chakra of the Jubi into his own. After that, Uchiha Madara continued to fight, mobilizing the Jubi's chakra again and again to let Black Zetsu continue to invade Uchiha Madara's body. After Uchiha Madara experienced the fist fight with Naruto and the siege of Nangongja, Black Zetsu could feel that his invasion of Uchiha Madara's body was at least half completed. It was also the opportunity for Uchiha Madara to extract a large amount of Chakra 2's body to repair. Black Zetsu directly began the final invasion. Black Madara's body, and a large amount of Rinnegan power contained in Uba's chakra. And a large amount of Rinnegan's Isa's. And Rinnegan's of Sharu's. It seems that Black Zetsu thought that just absorbing the energy contained in Uchiha Madara's body was still not enough, and a strong suction force also directly acted on the huge Jubi tree beside Uchiha Madara. After being pulled by Black Zetsu, the Jubi tree, which had already materialized, turned back into the purest chakra and rushed directly into Black Zetsu's body. Mother! Wake up! Black Zetsu finally spoke again after attaching himself to Madara's body. At this moment, Black Zetsu's voice no longer had the usual undisguised ridicule, but it was full of respect for creating his own life and making his own existence meaningful. Black Zetsu's body began to transform directly in a flash. The Jubi, which had been sealed in the human body as a source of energy, was completely integrated into Black Zetsu's body at this moment. Gradually, Black Zetsu's deep black began to gradually change, turning into a silver-white long hair, pure white eyes, and a dark red Rinnegan in the middle of the eyebrows. A large robe wrapped her body in it, and a powerful momentum swept the entire battlefield directly from the moment she appeared. However, Watergate, Nangongja, Naruto, and Sasuke directly lost control of their bodies at the moment when Otsutsuki Kagaya appeared. It felt like the person who appeared in front of them was the creator of the world. No matter how strong they were just a group of ants in front of her. After a short adaptation, Otsutsuki Kagaya finally opened his half-open eyes completely, and the almost white eyes in his eyes directly bloomed with invisible energy at this moment. With this energy, Nangongja, Sasuke, Naruto, and Watergate, who were already difficult to move because of the deterrent force, were now tightly controlled and unable to move. Byakugan, coercion. It's not the power of Jubi, but the power of Otsutsuki Kagaya's own bloodline. The average enemy, after being hit by the impact of Byakugan, coercion, will even directly fall to the ground and die because of the physical and mental pressure. Nangongja, Sasuke, Naruto, and Watergate were very strong, so after being hit by such an impact, their bodies were only controlled, and they did not suffer any substantial damage. Originally, Otsutsuki Kagaya's eyes were a little confused because he had just arrived in this world. After looking around with his eyes, he suddenly saw Uzumaki Naruto, who was wrapped in Rikudo coat, and Uchiha Sasuke, who had 6 Tomo Rinnegan in one eye. Although Otsutsuki Kagaya didn't know the faces of Naruto and Sasuke, Otsutsuki Kagaya sensed the breath from Naruto and Sasuke that was connected to his own blood. Hamura, Hagoromo, looking at Naruto and Sasuke, Otsutsuki Kagaya suddenly put his hand gently on Naruto and Sasuke's cheeks. Ignoring the resistance of Naruto and Sasuke, Otsutsuki Kagaya's eyes at this moment only had a kind of care for his own blood relatives. Otsutsuki Kagaya's eyes were also seen by Naruto and Sasuke. This kind of look was no different from Shina Kushina and Mikoto's eyes. It was the look of a mother looking at her child. For some reason, Naruto and Sasuke also seemed to see their mother. The resistance in their eyes gradually subsided and was replaced by a different kind of affection and gentleness. After all, if you have to say what kind of emotion can affect a person the most, a mother's unconditional love for her children must be one of the indisputable ones. Chapter 709. Gently stroking Naruto and Sasuke's cheeks, 2 lines of clear tears flowed directly from Otsutsuki Kagaya's eyes. Otsutsuki Kagaya's eyes were very calm, and there was no unresolvable sorrow, but tears continued to emerge like a broken dam. Although Otsutsuki Kagaya was called a demon because of his past actions, it has to be said that Otsutsuki Kagaya's heart is still full of love for his 2 children, Otsutsuki Hagoromo and Otsutsuki Hamura. Even if his 2 children directly sealed him, there was no way for him to be free for thousands of years. Mother, these two people are the reincarnation of Indra and Asura, the two children of Hagoromo who sealed you for thousands of years. Black Zetsu hid in Otsutsuki Kagaya's wide sleeve and said to Otsutsuki Kagaya. Hearing Black Zetsu's words, Otsutsuki Kagaya finally understood what the intimacy he felt from his heart was. Aren't Naruto and Sasuke his grandsons in disguise? For his family, Otsutsuki Kagaya's heart is full of care and love. At this moment, looking at Uchiha, Sasuke, and Uzumaki Naruto, his eyes became softer and softer, like a clear lake. Looking at Otsutsuki Kagaya's eyes, Naruto and Sasuke's spirits gradually relaxed. After all, even if people with such eyes have personality problems, as long as they can communicate well, there must be hope for reconciliation. Naruto and Sasuke were very clear that under Black Zetsu's plan, all the power of Uchiha Madara and Jubi was concentrated to resurrect the former goddess of Uno Otsutsuki Kagaya. In the previous spiritual space, Hagoromo Sennin also told Naruto and Sasuke some information about his mother. She came from another world, in order to seize the chakra fruit, and became the first person to use infinite Tsukuyomi because of the war. What Otsutsuki Kagaya had done, at this moment, kept reminding Naruto and Sasuke that the woman in front of them looked gentle and tender, but in her heart, there was a cold-blooded demon that could not be ignored. Children, Otsutsuki Kagaya looked at Naruto and Sasuke, his eyes were very soft. When he was about to say something to Uchiha Sasuke and Uzumaki Naruto, suddenly his eyes glanced in other directions. Watergate and Nangongja were directly shocked by Otsutsuki Kagaya's powerful momentum when he first appeared. After that, Otsutsuki Kagaya directly used a special ability like Byakugan, coercion, which almost directly subdued Watergate and Nangongja. After that, Otsutsuki Kagaya has been standing in front of Sasuke and Naruto. Although he didn't know the reason, Otsutsuki Kagaya touched Naruto and Sasuke's cheeks with tears. Perhaps Shuei men did not know much about the matters of ancient times, but Nangongja had read many ancient books in the Blood Cloak Pavilion. He knew a little about the things that happened in ancient times. From the moment Naruto and Sasuke met together, Naruto's very conspicuous Six Paths coat and Sasuke's Six-Tomo Rinnegan made Nangongja think that Naruto and Sasuke should have been in contact with the legendary realm of Six Paths Sennin. According to the records in the ancient books, and the reality, and the Hagoromo mentioned by Black Zetsu just now, it was the Six Paths Sennin Otsutsuki Hagoromo who sealed his mother. Although Nangongja didn't know what happened in ancient times, Nangongja understood that Otsutsuki Kagaya was very dangerous. Letting Naruto and Sasuke stay by Otsutsuki Kagaya's side was definitely not a good thing. Although Nangongja's nature has always been not so bloodthirsty, when Nangongja judged that a person was dangerous and could bring enough threat to himself and his loved ones, Nangongja would use thunderous means to directly attack such a person, regardless of whether the person was stronger or weaker than himself. At the moment when he was restricted, Nangongja had been trying various ways to break through this restriction. Finally, Nangongja found an effective way to compress the internal strength and sword energy in his body almost to the limit, and then gather all the energy together and directly burst at a point. The power that bound Nangongja was actually broken by Nangongja. The reason why Otsutsuki Kagaya suddenly stopped talking was because Nangongja broke through the shackles of his Byakugan, coercion. The power in this guy's body, as the source of chakra, Otsutsuki Kagaya naturally also saw Nangongja's energy for the first time. The energy in his body was not chakra, but a more peculiar way of cultivation. Seemingly aware of Otsutsuki Kagaya's doubts, Black Zetsu, who was hidden in Otsutsuki Kagaya's sleeve, also said to Otsutsuki Kagaya, "Mother, this person's name is Nangongja, and he is a very different existence from a ninja. The energy flowing in his body is not chakra, which is a mixture of spiritual energy and physical energy, but a strange energy extracted from the body and mixed with the natural energy in the air." Such a group of people called internal strength cultivators used to be extremely popular, and even for a period of time, such a group of people even directly occupied the absolute advantage in the confrontation with ninjas. It's just that I don't know why, but such a group of people declined. The person standing in front of you now is the best internal strength cultivator in the past 100 years. Because Otsutsuki Kagaya has been sealed for too long, he really doesn't know much about the current situation of the ninja world, so at this moment, Otsutsuki Kagaya mainly relies on his third son, who is actually a derivative of his consciousness, Black Zetsu, to provide the corresponding information for him. Internal Strength Cultivator. In fact, Otsutsuki Kagaya didn't quite understand what the so-called internal strength is, but he still felt a very strong killing intent from Nangongzhe. This kind of malicious killing intent made Otsutsuki Kagaya feel very uncomfortable. He slightly frowned, and almost didn't use any special attack method, just simply waved his hand, and a large amount of energy was directly released from his palm, directly hitting Nangongzhe. Chapter 710. If you have to find something that Kagaya hates the most, then war must be the most unbearable thing for Kagaya. It was because of his hatred for war that Kagaya directly used his powerful strength to quell the war in the ninja world. Since Kagaya hated war so much, it was naturally unbearable for Nangongzhe's murderous aura. Even after Otsutsuki Kagaya's spirit had a problem and became violent due to the influence of the chakra fruit, Otsutsuki Kagaya still didn't take away their lives, but directly erased the consciousness of the gods and turned them into living puppets. This can be regarded as a kind of persistence against killing and war, right? Originally, after seeing Otsutsuki Kagaya's gentle eyes, Naruto and Sasuke thought that the two of them could communicate with Otsutsuki Kagaya, and then let Otsutsuki Kagaya release those who were bound in the divine tree and lift the infinite Tsukimi for the people in this world. However, Kagaya's sudden attack made Naruto and Sasuke no longer have any thoughts of communicating with Kagaya. After all, the relationship between Nangongzhe, Sasuke, and Naruto was very close. Nangongzhe only slightly broke free from Kagaya's shackles, and Kagaya directly attacked him? No matter when, in fact, the human heart is full of prejudice. They will always unconsciously favor those who are closer to them, instead of really observing everything calmly like a bystander. Although such a nature will bring all kinds of drawbacks, it is also this nature that makes humans full of humanity. In Sasuke and Naruto's hearts, although they were slightly relaxed because of Kagaya's behavior, after all, Kagaya's dangerous aura and powerful strength still made Naruto and Sasuke involuntarily palpitate. At this moment, they saw that Nangongzhe, who was very close to them, was directly hit by Kagaya. From the blood splashing in the air, it was obvious that Nangongzhe was seriously injured. Although Kagaya's behavior was understandable, it also filled Sasuke and Naruto's hearts with anger. Naruto and Sasuke's great sun mark and bright moon mark, which represented the power of 6 paths of Yang and Yin respectively, were activated at the same time. The phantoms of Great Sun and Bright Moon appeared directly behind Naruto and Sasuke, and in the Great Sun and Bright Moon, 2 Buddha statues representing Asura and Indra were faintly sitting with various weapons. Although Naruto and Sasuke's attack speed was very fast, it was still much worse for Kagaya. Even when Naruto and Sasuke attacked, Kagaya had already reacted. But Kagaya, who turned to face Naruto and Sasuke, didn't fight back at all. He just let Naruto's fist hit his abdomen and Sasuke's kick to the side of his body. Otsutsuki Kagaya has a special ability, which is the Immortal body. For Kagaya, any ninjutsu and taijutsu attack is meaningless because ninjutsu will be absorbed by Kagaya, and the damage caused by taijutsu is not worth mentioning at all for Kagaya's strong recovery ability. This is also why when Uzumaki Naruto and Uchiha Sasuke attacked him, Kagaya didn't dodge at all and directly let the two's attacks fall on his body. Naruto and Sasuke's attacks didn't have any impact on Kagaya at all. No, it can't be said that there was no impact. Because at this moment, Otsutsuki Kagaya's eyes were filled with extreme coldness. The moment he saw Naruto and Sasuke, Otsutsuki Hagoromo and Otsutsuki Homura, his mind was indeed filled with his 2 children who had been sealed by him. Although Otsutsuki Kagaya has some resentment towards his two children, but at the same time, Otsutsuki Kagaya has an unresolvable love for his two children. After seeing Naruto and Sasuke, and learning about their lives from Black Zetsu's mouth, Otsutsuki Kagaya himself had some expectations. He was looking forward to the two people standing in front of him to be different from his two children, and to be obedient and become his family. But he just punished an ant who dared to offend his dignity, and now these two children dared to directly attack him? Kagaya's heart was very puzzled, but he was also very angry. Just because of an ant, Naruto and Sasuke dared to directly attack him. Otsutsuki Kagaya turned around and didn't attack. In fact, he was giving Naruto and Sasuke a chance. As long as the two children can stop in time, Otsutsuki Kagaya will not attack. After all, children are more or less naughty. As long as they don't touch the bottom line, it's understandable for Otsutsuki Kagaya. But once his child touches the bottom line, Otsutsuki Kagaya also believes that it is necessary to educate such a child to a certain extent. When Sasuke and Naruto's attack fell on Kagaya's body, the twisted emotions in Kagaya's heart also directly accumulated to the extreme. Disobedient children need to be taught a lesson. 80 God's Air Attack. Kagaya's tone was very cold, obviously the anger in his heart has accumulated to the extreme. The powerful chakra directly condensed in Kagaya's body. He clenched his hand into a fist and put it on his waist. Suddenly, he turned his fist into a palm and directly slapped in front of himself. The powerful chakra condensed in his body also directly vented in the direction of this palm. A huge, almost palm-shaped chakra rushed directly in the direction of Naruto and Sasuke. Sasuke stretched his hand in front of his body, and the power of 6 Tomo Rinnegan was instantly launched. The ability of Gakido was used by Uchiha Sasuke to resist the powerful chakra torrent. Naruto condensed all the floating truth-seeking balls behind him in front of him. 9 truth-seeking balls were constantly rotating in front of Naruto. Through the special ability of truth-seeking balls, they were constantly decomposing a large number of chakra rushing towards his position. Chapter 7-11. Kagaya's attacks continued in the direction of Naruto and Sasuke. Although Naruto and Sasuke have done their best to resist the attacks launched by Kagaya, in the face of Kagaya's almost endless waves of attacks, Naruto and Sasuke felt a little overwhelmed and shaky. At this moment, Otsutsuki Kagaya's 80 Gods Hollow Strike actually doesn't have any so-called chakra nature change or form change, it's just a simple release of all the chakra in one's body from one's own body, and the faint palm shape of this move is actually because Otsutsuki Kagaya's chakra is too pure and condensed, and it's released from his own palm. Kagaya's moves were full of a sense of simplicity and power from ancient times. It was also such a fighting style that made Naruto and Sasuke, who have always paid attention to each other's consumption, sneak attacks, and other slightly sinister methods, somewhat unprepared. Originally, the battle between ninjas was like waving a sharp blade in the shadows to attack each other. Although it's not that there's no direct confrontation, even in a direct confrontation, any ninja will instinctively start to calculate how to achieve the greatest effect with the least consumption. But at this moment, Otsutsuki Kagaya directly used his huge power to deal a crushing blow to the enemy, like a divine weapon descending from the sky. Naruto and Sasuke have seen such an attack method on Uchiha Madara, but in such an attack method, Kagaya still has a greater advantage than Uchiha Madara. This advantage is not only from the difference in chakra reserves and physical fitness, but more importantly, it's a difference in mentality. Although Uchiha Madara once used his powerful strength to suppress the entire ninja world, after all, he was still suppressed by Senju Takuma, the first Hokage. It's not an exaggeration to say that anything Uchiha Madara does, Senju Takuma can do it, and it's even likely to do it better. Although Uchiha Madara's character is domineering and wild, there has always been someone suppressing him, which also suppressed Uchiha Madara's character to a certain extent. But Kagaya Otsutsuki is different, because Kagaya Otsutsuki himself can easily calm the raging war on the earth when he came to this world. In other words, the title of Goddess of Uno for Kagaya Otsutsuki is not just an honorific title. Kagaya Otsutsuki is a living god for the world at that time. As a true god recognized by the world, the mentality of Kagaya Otsutsuki and Uchiha Madara will naturally be very different. For Kagaya Otsutsuki, it's normal for everything in the world to submit to him. Since he's uncomfortable in his heart, he can directly show his anger and let these fools understand his horror and power. Damn it! It looks like I can't hold it anymore. The special ability of the Rikudo of the Six Paths of Rinnegan's Gakido itself is an ability to absorb the enemy's chakra into his body and use it, but the so-called absorption is not endless. The amount of chakra that can be accommodated in a person's body is actually limited. Facing the vast amount of chakra that belongs to Kagaya Otsutsuki, the amount of chakra that Sasuke can absorb at this moment has reached a limit, and even the meridians in his body have become swollen because of a large amount of chakra. From the outside, Sasuke looks extremely ferocious at this moment. Sasuke, you step back and rest for a while, I will buy you some time. Naruto has also seen that Sasuke's body has reached a limit at this moment, and immediately said to Sasuke. Sasuke and Naruto have been together for many years, and the trust between them is also beyond ordinary people. After hearing Naruto's words, Sasuke didn't say much nonsense, but directly withdrew his ability as Naruto said, and then turned directly behind Naruto. However, Sasuke didn't rest as Naruto said. Instead, he directly put his hands behind Naruto's back, and the pure chakra that he just absorbed from Kagaya's attack was also directly transferred to Naruto's body under Sasuke's control. As the first human to eat the chakra fruit, the chakra in Kagaya's body can be said to be the source of chakra in everyone's body. After the neutral and peaceful chakra was injected into Naruto's body, Naruto could clearly feel that the chakra in his body even became a lot purer because of this chakra. Naruto naturally understood Sasuke's intention to transfer such chakra into his body. Naruto immediately transferred this pure chakra directly to the 9 truth-seeking balls that were constantly rotating in front of him. The 9 truth-seeking balls swelled slightly due to the influx of a large amount of chakra. The 9 truth-seeking balls directly began to rotate at high speed under the joint energy infusion of Naruto and Sasuke, and even directly turned into the shape of a ring because of the high speed. The truth-seeking balls continued to rotate, and their size continued to increase. The ring became bigger and bigger, and it didn't take long for the ring to expand directly to the point where it almost covered the sky. The thin and large ring almost completely enveloped Kagaya's 80 God's air attack, and the ability of the truth-seeking balls to offset energy was directly exerted to the extreme at this moment. Although Kagaya's 80 God's air attack was very powerful, in essence, it directly crushed the enemy's attack through a large amount of chakra. Once his chakra couldn't attack the enemy or was directly offset, it was naturally meaningless. These two kids are really good, but they still chose the wrong opponent. Kagaya saw Naruto and Sasuke working together to fight against him, and even now, there was a direct tie. His eyes flashed with a trace of appreciation, but after the appreciation, he still felt a trace of anger. After all, as the goddess of Uno, he didn't allow anyone to damage his majesty. Although the cooperation between Sasuke and Naruto was quite effective, it was still slightly inferior to him. Chapter 712. Ha-dash. With a soft cry, Kagaya's chakra burst out again. Originally, the attack range of 80 God's air attack was very large. With the addition of chakra, 80 God's air attack directly burst out with more power. The truth-seeking jade rings that Naruto and Sasuke used together became quite overwhelmed at this moment. The way to neutralize ninjutsu was actually very simple in principle, that is, to release the opposite amount of chakra of the ninjutsu that you want to neutralize. However, because Otsutsuki Kagaya's chakra is neutral and peaceful, truth-seeking ball can only release the same amount of chakra in order to fight against Otsutsuki Kagaya. However, the combination of Naruto and Sasuke was still different from Kagaya's, because when Naruto and Sasuke fought, they actually used chakra and six paths power with obvious limitations in their bodies. But Kagaya was different. Kagaya, who swallowed the chakra fruit, could actually be said to be Jubi itself. The almost endless pure chakra also made it difficult for Naruto and Sasuke to deal with, and after Kagaya's chakra burst out again, it also broke the balance that Naruto and Sasuke worked together to create. The rotation speed of the truth-seeking jade began to decrease, and the 9 slightly expanded but still spherical truth-seeking jade were clearly visible. At this moment, the chakra in Naruto and Sasuke's bodies fell into a state of extreme exhaustion because they had to neutralize the chakra released by Kagaya. The 9 truth-seeking jade could only rely on their own characteristics to float in the sky at this moment. Even if the truth-seeking jade rings that blocked his attack directly broke, Kagaya didn't hold back at all. He directly rushed his huge chakra in the direction of Naruto and Sasuke. Looks like I can only fight with all my might. It was precisely because of Otsutsuki Kagaya's 80 Gods empty strike that such a voice sounded in the hearts of Naruto and Sasuke at the same time. Facing the threat that can lead to their own death, Naruto and Sasuke's bodies also emerged powerful forces. Bijou chakra gushed out of Naruto's body. The golden Bijou chakra mixed with six paths power directly formed a huge golden fist with a clenched fist. Naturally, Sasuke also directly urged his 6 Tomo Rinnegan and Eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. A large amount of dojutsu, chakra, 6 paths power, and the original chakra absorbed from Otsutsuki Kagaya's attack just now were all mixed together, displaying his almost peak Susanoo. Naruto held his giant fist, while Sasuke manipulated his Susanoo. The two of them simultaneously faced the powerful attack of Otsutsuki Kagaya. Black Zetsu hid in Otsutsuki Kagaya's sleeve and watched the battle between Otsutsuki Kagaya, Naruto, and Sasuke. Although it seems that Naruto and Sasuke are at a disadvantage at the moment, Black Zetsu's heart didn't dare to relax at all, because Naruto and Sasuke are simply existences with legendary lives. How old are Naruto and Sasuke now? They're only 16 or 17 years old, but how many people in the history of the shinobi world can possess the power that these two people possess? Youth is the weakness of Naruto and Sasuke. After all, youth represents the weakness of combat experience and experience. But youth is also the biggest advantage of Naruto and Sasuke. Now that Naruto and Sasuke are so powerful, if the potential of the two is stimulated again, how far will the two of them go? It is precisely because he knows what kind of threat Naruto and Sasuke have that Black Zetsu pays so much attention to them at this moment. And Black Zetsu has already begun to think about how to defeat these two young powerhouses if Naruto and Sasuke succeed in resisting this wave of attacks. Break for me. Facing the powerful 80 Gods air attack, Naruto and Sasuke's hearts were full of pressure, but because of the pressure, Naruto and Sasuke's unyielding will burned again. Chakra, 6 paths power, Senjutsu chakra, and so on in their body, as long as it can be called energy, were all released by Naruto and Sasuke without any restrictions. And the powerful 80 Gods air attack also showed a small crack under the joint efforts of Naruto and Sasuke. The dike of 1,000 miles collapses because of an ant's nest. They are not afraid of causing little damage, but they are afraid that there is no way to cause damage at all. After seeing the birth of the crack, Naruto and Sasuke's eyes inevitably showed some joy, and then even their tired bodies suddenly gave birth to strength at this moment. Naruto and Sasuke looked at each other and tacitly attacked again without caring about the consumption. Crack, a crisp sound directly appeared in Naruto and Sasuke's ears. 80 Gods air attack was broken. The huge chakra palm was broken in an instant, and the condensed palm-shaped chakra scattered around like pieces of broken glass. In the process of scattering, these fragments directly turned into energy light spots and directly integrated into the air. Seeing that Naruto and Sasuke's joint efforts actually broke her attack directly, although Otsutsuki Kagaya's face was still cold, but in her eyes, there was an unavoidable look of astonishment. This situation was obviously beyond Otsutsuki Kagaya's expectations. Mother Sama, Uzumaki Naruto, and Uchiha Sasuke got 6 paths Yang power and 6 paths Yin power respectively from Hagoromo. When the two of them cooperate to attack or do other things together, they will form a strange resonance with each other, which will increase the strength of the two people at the same time beyond each other's limits. So if you want to deal with these two people, it's better to separate them directly and defeat them one by one. Black Zetsu was hidden in Otsutsuki Kagaya's sleeve and said his judgment to Otsutsuki Kagaya. For Black Zetsu, Otsutsuki Kagaya has almost extreme trust. Seeing Black Zetsu's suggestion, Otsutsuki Kagaya thought about it and nodded, apparently agreeing with Black Zetsu's proposal. A large number of chakra condensed on Otsutsuki Kagaya's forehead. The Scarlet Rinnegan, which originally only revealed a gap, slowly opened at this moment, and a terrifying pressure came out of it. Chapter 713. Heaven's Defense. When the eye on his forehead was fully opened, a powerful coercion also came out of Otsutsuki Kagaya's body. The target of this coercion was not Naruto, Sasuke, or Watergate standing below him, but the sky above him. Under the impact of Rinnegan of 9 Tomo, the sky was directly penetrated, and the penetrated part was like a piece of torn paper, directly swallowed by the dark hole that suddenly appeared above the sky. Naruto, Sasuke, and Watergate didn't know what kind of ninjutsu the so-called Heaven's Defense was, but from the current performance, Heaven's Defense must be a ninjutsu that involves the concept of space. Perhaps because most of his energy was invested in releasing such a powerful ninjutsu as Heaven's Defense, Otsutsuki Kagaya's powerful Byakugan coercion also weakened a bit. Watergate took advantage of the weakening of the shackles on himself and rushed directly to the place where Uchiha and Sasuke were. Watergate's research on space ninjutsu is very profound, and he was directly in Uchiha Obito's Kamui space before, and he felt what kind of existence the artificially created different space is at a close distance. Now, by observing the weak spatial energy coming from the Heaven's Defense, Shuei Men was able to determine that the Heaven's Defense contained a vast space. There is a mark of Flying Thunder God on Naruto's body, but he didn't leave it on Sasuke's body. Once they step into a large space like Heaven's Defense, they will be separated, then the space ninjutsu, Flying Thunder God Jutsu, he mastered will be their last life-saving straw. A powerful suction directly enveloped Naruto, Sasuke, Watergate, and the land around them. Gravel and trees were directly pulled by the powerful suction force in the black hole created by Heaven's Defense, and began to be slowly sucked in. The suction speed of Heaven's Defense wasn't very fast, but the people who were controlled by it felt like their bodies were injected with lead. They couldn't move at all, they could only wait for themselves to be sucked into the bottomless black hole full of mystery. No, I must leave a mark on Sasuke's body, otherwise, Naruto and I have no way to deal with Otsutsuki Kagaya. In the battle just now, Watergate has fully seen the strength of Otsutsuki Kagaya herself. From the beginning to the end, Otsutsuki Kagaya only used 80 God's Hollow Attack and Heaven's Defense, 2 ninjutsu, and showed her huge amount of chakra, but these 2 ninjutsu and the almost endless pure chakra already made Watergate's heart full of shock. As the ancestor of chakra, the goddess of Uno Otsutsuki Kagaya, Watergate doesn't believe that she only has these 2 special abilities. Although his body is very heavy now, Watergate can still move his body slightly in such an environment. And Watergate found that the speed of Heaven's Defense, attracting stones and trees, seems to be a little faster than the speed of absorbing people. Maybe it's because it takes a lot of power to bind the human body, and the stones and trees themselves don't have any offensive energy, so there's no need to bind them. Because Heaven's Defense is not a ninjutsu, Watergate can judge the nature of Heaven's Defense by some external observations, but there is no way to fully understand the specific details of Heaven's Defense. But now these stones and trees flying faster than himself also gave Watergate an opportunity to achieve his goal. Watergate directly twisted his body slightly, trying to adjust his position with the force of the impact of the stones and trees. The hard stones directly hit his body under Watergate's prediction, and the sharp horns directly pierced into Watergate's flesh. Blood directly oozed out of the wound. Stones and trees constantly hit his body under Watergate's calculation, which also allowed Watergate to get closer to Sasuke's location. The impact of the stones and trees made Watergate's body have many large and small wounds. These wounds, deep or shallow, were constantly oozing blood. But now Watergate has no time to pay attention to his injuries, because he is still a certain distance away from Sasuke, and he and others are about to be absorbed into Heaven's defense. One more. As long as one more piece, I can get close to Uchiha Sasuke's location. Watergate turned his head and finally found a huge stone rushing in the direction of himself and Sasuke. As long as he can control the way he contacts the stone, he can rely on the huge size of the stone to directly make himself and Sasuke collide, and then engrave the mark of Flying Thunder God on Sasuke's body. 3, 2, 1. It's now. Watergate directly ignored the constant pain in his body, and put his mind on calculating the speed of the stone's flight and how he should hit the stone so that he can quickly get close to Uchiha Sasuke. He adjusted his posture so that the stone could rub him and hit him next to Uchiha Sasuke. The sharp corners directly scratched Watergate's left arm, and the huge wound directly turned over flesh. But Watergate is getting closer and closer to Uchiha Sasuke's location at this moment. Condensing chakra in the palm of his right hand, Watergate tried to open his palm to grab Uchiha Sasuke's body. But at this moment, Watergate and Sasuke are close to the huge hole created by Heaven's defense. Watergate's palm condensed with Flying Thunder God's mark, at this moment, only brushed a part of Sasuke's clothes, and only about half of the Flying Thunder God's mark was left on Sasuke's body. However, according to Watergate's judgment, this incomplete Flying Thunder God's mark will only make him a little distance away from Sasuke when he teleports, and it will not directly cause him to be unable to use Flying Thunder God Jutsu to get close to Sasuke. At this moment, although Watergate was also absorbed into Heaven's defense, his heart has been a lot more stable. After all, some preparations have been made. What he needs to do now is to counter every move and find every opportunity to fight against Otsutsuki Kagaya. You're tuning in to the Unparalleled SwordWill YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.